saying, babe?
Well, I'm leaving in the morning, and you said if you would understand. Time to hit the road. I promise you I do love best I can. I'm going out to take care of business. Playing my music across the land. Now we cruising down the highway. Everything seems to be just fine.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
I see bright lights.
All right, Tampa City Council is now in session, even session for October 28, 2021. Roll call, please.
Carlson.
Here.
Maniscalco.
Here.
Dingfelder. Citro. Here. Vieira. Miranda.
Here.
And Goods.
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
All right, Mr. Shelby.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Tampa City Council. Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. Today is the 28th day of October. It's after 5:01 p.m., and we are here at Old City Hall on the third floor at 315 East Kennedy Boulevard. And tonight's quasi-judicial related matters are being conducted with a live in-person quorum of City Council present in the City Council chamber. However, in light of continuing COVID-19 government-issued health standards or guidance now in effect, the members of the public have the ability to participate virtually through video teleconferencing, referred to by Florida statutes and rules as Communication Media Technology, or CMT. Now, the public is able to watch, listen, and view this meeting on cable TV, Spectrum Channel 640, Frontier Channel 15, and on the internet live streaming at tampa.gov/live stream. Now, there are ways that people have alternate methods of participating in the hearings tonight. They can participate remotely through CMT. Pre-registration in advance is required, and that instruction is available at tampa.gov/quasi, QUASI, or on the City Council's webpage at tampa.gov/City Council, one word. Now, they can also have pre-registering by CMT, but if they don't have CMT or a video device that allows allows you to share your camera, then you can use facilities that are on the second floor of Old City Hall that are made available to you by the City of Tampa. Now, so that the public is clear, in order to participate via CMT, you must have access to a communications media device that will be such as a tablet or a computer equipped with a camera and a microphone that will enable you to be seen by video and heard by audio by the City Council members and other participants. Again, these instructions are available at tampa.gov/quasi. Now, there are ways to also communicate via email and via U.S. mail, and also written comments, letters, petitions, and other documents have been distributed to City Council and will be included in the permanent record of the meeting. Mr. Chairman, this being a hybrid meeting and consistent with Council's policy and its rules in its notice, I would ask that City Council waive the standing rules and adopt these.
Second. So moved.
Moved by Mr. Scalco, second by Mr. Miranda. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion granted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Shelby,
We have some housekeeping matters.
yes, sir.
Maybe what we can do is we can address continuances. Is staff online for that? Who is Ms. Barnes?
Correct, Zane.
Zane, Mr. Hussein.
How are you, sir?
Okay, there you
Thank
are.
you so much, Zane Hussein, Development Coordination. I have 4 items for housekeeping, 3 continuances and 1 missed notice. First thing is number 1, agenda item number 1. This case is AB 221-23. The applicant has requested a continuance to January 27th at 5:01 p.m.
If we could,
Currently, there are
yes.
11 cases for the 27th of January, as applicant would need to also go through DRC again and also renotice.
This is not the second continuance on this item?
Correct.
Now, is there anyone who is here to speak on the
I see
continuance?
Susan Johnson Velez, you recognize?
I just wanted to let council know that if the request for continuance is, as you consider that it would go beyond the 180 days for this application, so council would need to find extenuating circumstances in order to continue beyond that.
All right. Zane, have you finished?
Yes, sir, I have.
All right, we hear from the applicant.
Good evening, Council. Steve Michelini, representing the petitioner. We had requested a continuance to January 27th based upon site plan reconfigurations and changes that have to be made, and pursuant to meetings that we've had with Metropolitan Ministries as well as a neighborhood association, and we'll be going back and revisiting with them with the changes that we're proposing. You should have 2 documents in your file, one from John Dix, representing Metropolitan Ministries, indicating that they had no objection to the continuance, and then a second email, and I'm not sure if you have this one, from Brian Seal, who was saying that he personally supports the continuance to allow the applicant to continue work with the neighborhood and reach an agreeable outcome. This has not been back to the Tampa Heights Civic Association, but we will be going back to them with the changes should the council approve this. And as Susan Velez Johnson indicated, we will need to waive the 180 days. It will require a revision to our site plan and a survey, both of which will take a considerable amount of time that pushes us outside the 180 days. So the staff, we met and talked to the staff about a potential continuance date, and they gave us the January 27th date as being acceptable to them. So we respectfully request you continue this item until January 27th, 5:01 p.m.
Mr. Shelby, what's council's new rule on continuances?
Well, council, I don't believe any rule has been officially adopted yet as a result of your work, your recent discussion. According to I'm trying to recall what Ms. Feely said, I believe it's presently 10 cases with 3 for continuance. Is Mr. Hussein available to confirm that, please?
Good evening, Council. Ryan Manassi, Development Coordination. To go back on the workshop that we discussed, Councilman, we were talking in specifics to rezoning continuances, being the ability to continue them onto a alcohol beverage night, because typically alcohol beverage don't have as many cases. The night that Mr. Michelini is requesting is an alcoholic beverage, so we wouldn't want to put that on a rezoning night, which is typically full already. So that's when Mr. Michelini reached out to us. That's our next available date. But that was basically what we talked about at the workshop, the ability to be continued some rezonings to alcohol nights to lessen load on those rezoning nights.
So this would then be consistent with those discussions, Mr. Manassi?
That's correct. So this is alcohol going to another alcohol night.
All right, Mr. Rand, I saw your hand.
No,
sir.
this is the first continuance on this one?
Second.
This will be the second, sir.
Second. All right, I think there's a rule after the second, there's something else that kicks in. Am I correct? Mr. Shelby?
It hasn't been officially adopted yet. Did council pass? I don't know. I certainly had not drafted as a result of that yet. 2 continuances.
Mr. Shelby, Ryan Manassi, I believe that was the discussion about your rules and proceedings that had to be amended for that.
We didn't have that in the
It
packet.
hasn't been done yet. I was going to bring them back before the end of the
Okay.
the end of the year.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, if
You
I may.
recognize.
Thank you, Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. Council, with regard to hybrid meetings, we've had concerns raised by the public of people who want to be able to speak to the continuance. And normally when they are present, they can be on the second floor, and they're able to do that. But to be consistent, we should open it up for the purposes of people only speaking to the continuance and not the subject of the hearing. So also, I was contacted by somebody who had been registered online and wanted that opportunity as well to speak to a continuance, but unfortunately wasn't given that opportunity. So I would just ask if there is somebody on the second floor who wishes to speak to the continuance, either in support or opposition, it doesn't make a difference, but the point is if they have something just about the continuance, to be able to address the City Council. And likewise, I'd ask the clerk if there are people registered for this, that we could just see if there's a way for people to indicate if they want to speak to the continuance. One more thing I want to add that I did not add about the GoToMeeting platform, there is a chat box. And that chat box is not to be used to communicate with City Council members. It's only to be communicating with the clerk if there are technical issues. So this may be one of those things, but with regard to talking with City Council members, it's inappropriate for people to use the chat box for that purpose. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd ask if you would inquire if there's anybody on the second floor.
I will do that just soon
Mr.
as
Chairman,
Mr.
before we go any further, let me open
Hernandez.
the hearing. Did we open 1 through
That's a good idea.
9?
Mr. Miranda is open, Mr. Maniscalco is second, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion granted. Is there anyone on the second floor to speak on this item? Reference to the continuance only.
Good evening, City Council members. Eileen Rosario, Development Coordination. There is no one here to speak on this item.
Oh, good evening, Ms. Eileen, thank you. All right, do we have any registered to speak, Madam Deputy Clerk?
There are no registered speakers for this item.
I do see John Dix online.
All right, Mr.
Is he
Dix.
Thank you, Mr. Shelby. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Michelini indicated that Metropolitan Ministries, my client, is supportive of the continuance, and indeed we are. We thought it was important to come and represent to the City Council that the applicants made some strides. They're continuing to work on their application, and we think that the next 60 days or so will allow them to tweak their application so that it becomes more compatible and addresses some of our concerns.
Any questions? All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Scalco made a motion, Mr. Citro a second, and all in favor?
Aye.
If we can, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry.
recognize, sure.
Is the time going to continue as per council's instructions to 5:01 on that day in January?
That'll be fine.
Okay, 5:01 then? That's part of the motion?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Then we'll finish the vote. All in
The
favor?
vote.
Aye.
If we could do it
Any
by
opposed?
voice roll call, please.
Roll call.
Carlson,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Dingfelder, Citro. Vieira. Miranda.
Yes.
And Goods.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Dingfelder being absent.
Thank you, council.
All right, Zane, what else do we have to clean up right before we get started?
Thanks so much. We have 3 more items. Agenda item number 3 has requested a continuance to February 10th. This is for REZ 21-23.
All right, is the applicant here to speak on that? We have the applicant speak on that? All right.
Is there anyone?
Anyone
The
on the
applicant-
second floor to speak on that?
Eileen
Council.
Rosario, Development Coordination. There's no one here to speak on this item. Thank you.
Anyone registered to speak on this item?
Mr. Chair, I move file
if I-
number REZ.
I think she's
We
done.
have Elise
I'm sorry.
Batzel, registered for this item. I do have someone raising their hand.
It's Ryan Manassi,
That's Ryan.
Chairman. Can I just make a point?
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to include in that continuance request that they'd have to waive their 180 days for extenuating circumstances, and this application would have to go back through a DRC and renotice. So I just want to put that on the record, and I see Kevin Reale's on, and he represents, he's the agent for this application.
All right, Mr. Rowley?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we're requesting a continuance to the February 10th hearing date. We have already submitted a new site plan. That site plan must go through DRC, and the reason for the request is in response to neighbor concerns. Unit counts and a parking deck. Unit counts have been reduced and a parking deck has been added, and the addition of a parking deck requires a DRC review. And so we are already on that path, and we're requesting council allow us to bring the application that was submitted or site plan that was submitted this week before them in February.
I want to make sure we have enough on February 10th, how many applications we have.
Was it
I'm
Zane
sure
or
the
Ryan
city
want to answer
knows.
that?
Thank you, Council. Yeah, February 10th is a rezoning night, and we have 10 rezonings, and this would be one of 2 continuance that are being requested for this tonight, for that night tonight. So it'll be a total of 12 if you approve the next item that we have to housekeep. This will be 11.
Ryan.
I'm keeping them under 13, sir, I promise.
Ryan. Okay. All right, item number 13, no one else to speak on this
Mr.
item? 3. Yeah, I don't know if there's no one else to speak on this item, so, motion?
Mr. Chair,
So move for February 10th, 2022 at 5:01.
second.
Mr. Randall moved, Mr. Citro second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted. All right, Zane, next.
Thanks so much, Zane Hussein,
Roll call.
Development Coordination. Another housekeeping item.
You want a roll call
Item
on
number
that last one, Mr.
Oh,
Shelby?
you did it by voice vote?
Yeah.
Let's be consistent, please. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Maniscalco,
Same thing.
Yes.
Dingfelder, Citro,
Yes.
Vieira, Miranda.
Yes.
Goode.
Yes.
And Carlson.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Dingfelder being absent.
All right, Zane.
Thanks so much, Zane Hussein, Development Coordination. Another housekeeping item, agenda item number 5, requested for continuance. This is REZ 21-67. They are requesting continuance to February 10th. They need ARC approval, and also they'll need to go through DRC again, and also go through a renotice.
All right. Applicant, speak on this item? We have an applicant? Mr. Horner, all right.
Council, can you hear me?
We can hear you, can't see you, we can hear you.
Hang on one second. Sorry about that.
We can see you.
Mr. Chairman, Council, thank you. I'm Michael Horner for the record, representing the owner and applicant for item number 6. This is our first continuance request. We have gone to the ARC. They had concerns expressed about density and open space. We have revised our plans to reduce density by 2 units from 8, and also increase open space and setbacks. I believe we're being scheduled by Mr. Villa for the ARC in early January. We do have to go back to the DRC. We have respectfully requested the February 10th as well, if that could be granted. I don't believe we have any opposition. We've been working with staff, and we respectfully ask your support on this continuance. Thank you.
All right, anybody else on the second floor speak on this item for Mr. Continues? Anyone on the second floor?
Eileen Rosario, Development and Coordination. There's no one here to speak on this item. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone registered to speak on this item?
No one is registered for this item.
All right.
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I move for item number 5 to be continued to February 10th, the year 2022 at 5:01.
Second.
Second by Mr. Maniscalco. Roll call, please.
Citro,
Yes.
Vieira, Miranda. Carlson.
Yes.
Maniscalco. And Goode.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Dingfelder being absent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Zane?
Thanks so much. One more housekeeping item, Zane Hussein, Development Coordination. Agenda item number 8, RZ 21-90. This was a missed notice and cannot be heard.
Motion to remove, please.
Mr. Maniscalco's motioned. Second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Citro. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion granted. All right. I'm going to use personal preference for the chairman. Since Mr. Dingfelder is not here, Mrs. Shelby, would probably trouble to move number 7 up right now since Mr. Dingfelder is not here.
Okay, if that's council's pleasure, I believe that was my understanding, a request. Is the applicant's representative for number 7 here, present?
I'm present.
Are you prepared to have your case heard now, sir?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. You want to swear in the witnesses?
Yes, sir. Let's swear the witnesses for item number 7.
I've already been sworn.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Who will be presenting for staff on this item?
Staff?
Annie Barnes, Development Coordination.
All right,
Is it my understanding we're waiting for Councilman Dingfelder?
No, that's not your understanding. We're moving on
Okay.
without Mr. Dingfelder.
Oh, apologies. Thank you. Alrighty. Can I please share my screen? Great. Can you see my screen?
You can blow it up a little bit, we can see it.
Oh.
All right, we can see it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Council. Annie Barnes, Development Coordination. Item number 7 is REZ 2188. The subject property is located at 2408 North Glenwood Drive. The request is to rezone the property from RS60 residential single family to RS50 residential single family. I'll turn over the presentation to the Planning Commission, and after their presentation, I'll conclude mine.
Good evening, council members. David Hay with your Planning Commission staff. I have been sworn. If I could share my screen, please. All right, hopefully you're seeing the screen. The subject site is located within the Central Tampa Planning District, more specifically the Ridgewood Park neighborhood. The closest public recreation facility is Phillips Park. That's about 0.12 miles to the north on West Columbus Drive. There is transit located on West Columbus Drive. West Columbus Drive is served by Harts Route 15, and the subject site is located within a level A evacuation zone. Onto the aerial, the subject site, of course, is right here in the center. You can see Glenwood Drive runs south from Columbus Drive. That street has a small greenway that runs along it. We've got Columbus Drive to the north. Ridgewood Drive is further to the west. Of course, this is the Hillsborough River. And to the southeast, you can see property associated with Armature Works and the Heights Project. The subject site, this area you can see is mostly developed with single-family detached. There is some commercial located at the intersection of West Columbus Drive and North Boulevard. Here we have the future land use map. The subject site and all the properties within that tan color surrounding the site are all the residential 10. If we move to the northeast, that pinkish purple color, that's the community mixed use 35. East side of North Boulevard, the density does increase to a residential 35. That's represented by the brown. There's also some residential 35 further, about 2 blocks to the south of the subject site along the Hillsborough River. It is hard to see, but this is the river running right here. And then, of course, the purple associated with the Heights project represents the regional mixed use 100, future land use category. Planning Commission staff reviewed the application and found no adverse impacts to the surrounding neighborhood. This portion of North Glenwood Drive, south of West Columbus Drive and north of West Park Avenue has an existing density of 5.23 units per acre. The request would allow for consideration of 2 single-family detached dwelling units at an overall density of 5.88 units per acre, which is consistent with the density anticipated under that residential 10 future land use designation. The comprehensive plan promotes preserving and maintaining the stability of existing single-family neighborhoods while increasing housing opportunities for Tampa's growing population. The proposed request would allow for a development that is similar in form, height, and scale as the surrounding residential units found within this portion of the Ridgewood Park neighborhood. The proposed rezoning supports many of the policies in the comprehensive plan as it relates to housing the city's population. The Tampa Comprehensive Plan encourages new housing on vacant and underutilized land to ensure that adequate supply of housing is available to meet the needs of Tampa's present and future population. In conclusion, the development of 2 single-family detached residential units on North Glenwood Drive would be comparable and compatible with that surrounding neighborhood and consistent with the long-range development pattern envisioned under the residential 10 future land use category. So based on that, the Planning Commission staff is recommending to you this evening that the proposed rezoning be found consistent with the provisions of the Tampa Comprehensive Plan. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Hay? All right, Ms. Barnes?
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen again. Can you see it?
Not yet.
Oh. How about now?
All right, we got it. Thank you.
Great. Great again. The applicant is proposing to rezone 2408 North Glenwood Drive from RS60 to RS50. There are no waivers requested because this is a standard Euclidean rezoning. The site is comprised of lots 2 and 3, Block G of Ridgewood Park subdivision, platted in 1922, shown here. Shown here is the survey of site, approximately 14,882 square feet in size, or 0.34 acres. This is the conforming lot map with an analysis of 328 lots. Staff has identified that 60% of the lots in the study area, 80% of the subject block, 86% of the block of North Glenwood Avenue, and 100% of the block face are lot widths of 59.99 feet or less. Staff finds the proposed lots measuring 50 feet in width as consistent with the existing development pattern. Shown here is an aerial map in the surrounding zoning. Property located north, south, east, and west of the subject parcel are zoned RS60, residential single family. Surrounding uses are residential, mostly residential single family detached uses. Shown here is the subject property. And this is a picture of the property looking southwest near the intersection of West Amelia Avenue and North Glenwood Drive. This is further south along North Glenwood Drive. And shown here is the middle, or a little park, middle of North Glenwood Drive. And then this is property directly east and across from the site, and east and further south along North Glenwood Drive. And this is a picture of North Glenwood Drive looking north towards West Columbus Drive. In accordance with policy 9.3.8, the proposed lots measuring 50 feet in width are consistent with the existing development pattern. Development Review and Compliance staff has reviewed the application and finds the request consistent with the City of Tampa Land Development Code, and I'm available if you have any questions.
Any questions, Ms. Barnes? All right, we're from the applicant.
Good evening, Council. Steve Michelini, representing Mark Mobley. As the staff has pointed out, both the Planning Commission and the city staff have found this to be consistent. It reestablishes the original plat from the 1922, and the lots are extremely deep. This is 58.3 feet wide by 130 feet deep. So instead of the 5,000 square foot minimum that's required for RS50, this has 7,441 square feet, which is 2,400 square feet in excess of what would be required of a minimum lot size. This meets the city design criteria as established by the Planning Commission, and I don't want to read through all of the different criteria that is, but it starts with land use objective 1.2 and goes to 1.2.3, 1.2.6, 1.2.14, 1.2.18, and continues on with the meeting the city planning strategies, land use objective 2.1, 2.1.2, overall residential development standards 9.2, 9.2.1, 9.3, 9.3.8, single-family living area objectives to provide adequate housing. Again, land use objective 9.5, 9.5.1, 9.5.3. Community plans, neighborhood community plans, starting with objective 1.3, 1.3.10. Adequate housing sites that should be made available where there's existing utilities. Housing objective 1.3, 1.3.1, 1.3.3, 1.3.4, infrastructure that's available for accepting developments of this type, and also coastal management and maintain the hurricane clearance within the city. As the Planning Commission has found, the rezoning has many policies in the comprehensive plan as it relates to housing and population, and meets all of those, including land use policies 9.2.1 and housing policies. We're respectfully requesting your approval for this. It is reestablishing the existing plat, and we found that there was no inconsistencies here, and again, the square footage of the lot will exceed the 5,000 square feet by 2,400 square feet. We believe that we have met all of the criteria, and the staff, we concur with their analysis that this is consistent with the code, and we're respectfully requesting your approval.
Question for the applicant.
Development pattern clearly shows that the lots are already being developed in smaller lot sizes and not the 60-foot wide as the current zoning is establishing.
Any questions for the applicant? All right. Anyone speak on this item? Ms. Rosario, anybody speak on this item?
You'd like to join me? Eileen Rosario, Development Coordination. There's no one here to speak on this item. Thank you.
Anyone registered to speak on this item?
No one is registered for this item.
All right, move close. Mr. Citro has moved, Mr. Miranda has seconded. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion granted. Mr. Vera, can you do the honors tonight?
Yes, sir. I move item number 7, an ordinance being presented for first reading consideration, an ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 2408 North Glenwood Drive in the city of Tampa, Florida, and more particularly described in section 1 from zoning district classification RS60, residential single family, to RS50, residential single family, providing an effective date.
Second, Ms. Maniscalco. Roll call, please.
Vieira.
Yes.
Miranda. Carlson.
Yes.
Maniscalco. Dean Felder. Citro.
Yes.
And Goods.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Dean Felder being absent.
Thank you, council.
Item number 2.
Thanks so much, Zane Hussein, Development Coordination. Agenda item number 2, AB 22125. This for a special use 2 for a small.
I'm sorry, before you continue, Kate Wells, I don't know that we announced when second reading was going to occur on the previous case.
All right.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, I'm
Second
sorry.
reading and adoption will be held on December 2nd, 2021 at 9:30 a.m.
Thank you, Ms. Wells, for catching that. All right, item number 2.
Thanks so much. Can I please have control of the screen? Thank you. Zain Hussein, Development Coordination. Agenda item number 2, AB 221-25. This is for the location at 1531 East 7th Avenue. This proposing a special use to small venue, beer, wine, and liquor consumption on premises and package sales off premises consumption. The applicant is Rocksteady Partners with Representative Jonathan W. Baker. There is one waiver requested, and that's to reduce the required distance separation from other AB2 establishments from 250 feet to 0 feet. The two establishments are the 7-Eleven, right now adjacent to it, and also Arturo Fuentes Cigars, also on East 7th Avenue. As you see, site plan of the property being constructed at this time on East 7th Avenue. Looking at aerial footage of the property, East 7th Avenue to the north, to the south you have East 6th Avenue, to the west North 15th Street, and to the east North 17th Street. The property has a AV sales area of 1,861 square feet indoors and 927 square feet outdoors, for a total of 2,788 square feet. Site plan will show, as I showed before, the access is on East 7th Avenue. There is no off-street parking required because it's in the YC1 district. The proposed hours are Monday through Sunday, 11:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. or 3 a.m. I'm sorry, 11:30 a.m. to 3 a.m. Monday through Sunday. As I went out to the site, this is the current picture of what the site looks like as they are right now in construction. To the north of the site, you'll see the Centro Español building right across the street. To the west of the site, you'll see a multitude of commercial establishments, including the tattoo parlor, restaurant, bars to the west. And to the east of the site on the strip, you'll see the 7-Eleven right now adjacent, and also more commercial establishments down the street. The Development Review and Compliance staff has reviewed the application and finds it inconsistent with the applicable City of Tampa Code of Ordinances. Thank you. I'm here for any questions if needed.
Any questions? Staff, any questions? All right, here from the applicant. Have you been sworn, sir?
I have, yes. We both have. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of council. My name is Jonathan Baker, 27251 Wesley Chapel Boulevard, Suite 1044, Wesley Chapel, Florida 33544. The agent for the applicant, Rocksteady Partners, doing business as Sterling Cigar. Harry Cayafas and his wife are the owners of the property and will be operating Sterling Cigar. Harry is with me here today in the background there. We have both been sworn in. This building, like Zane said, is a new 4-story construction. I have a PowerPoint up here. I don't know if on the Elmo here, can we see that? There we go. The building is a new 4-story construction right on 7th Avenue, the heart of the entertainment district of Ybor City, across from Centro Ybor, and our special use 2 application is for a small venue, beer, wine, and liquor for consumption on premises and package sales, consumption off premises for Sterling Cigar, which will be on the 4th floor. We've had our meetings with development staff and have made all changes and met all standards they've requested. As Zane said, construction is on track. We're hoping to keep moving forward. This is a view right here of the north elevation plan showing what the front of the establishment will look like that will face north onto 7th Avenue. The main entrance here opens into a lobby with an elevator and staircase to go up to the 4th floor. And as I said, Harry and his wife own this property and will be operating Sterling Cigar on the 4th floor. The 1st floor will be leased to a tenant for a Korean restaurant. The 2nd and 3rd floors will be vacation rental spaces like Airbnbs. And the 4th floor will be Sterling Cigar. Here's a quick look at the floor plan to give you an idea of the layout. At the top is the front of the business facing 7th Avenue. Sterling Cigar will have a walk-in humidor with a large selection of premium cigars for patrons to browse, purchase, and of course enjoy on site. And while enjoying a cigar, they'll be able to order food and have a nice cognac or scotch in the lounge areas or on the front or rear balconies. Both of these balconies are permanently covered with fixed solid metal awnings, and the entryways between the balconies and the indoor areas are equipped with state-of-the-art air curtains to prevent contaminants from entering the establishment. The business will have a food service license from the Division of Hotels and Restaurants. This is a sample of the menu showing some of the appetizers and small plates, desserts, and beverages. And moving on a little bit about the site. Sorry here. This is the intersection of East 7th Avenue and North 16th Street. I imagine most of us are familiar with this area. You can see Centro Ybor near the top right. We are in the Ybor City Urban Village, zoning classification YC1, Central Commercial Core. As Zane said, no off-street parking is required, but the Centro Ybor parking garage is less than a block south, and the 717 parking lot is less than a block west. Proposed hours are consistent with Chapter 14, which the chapter allows 7 a.m. to 3 a.m. every day. We're just requesting 11:30 a.m. to 3 a.m. every day. This is compatible with many of the surrounding businesses. Nearly all are open late every day, with many till 2 or 3 a.m. at least a few days a week. Since we are in the entertainment district right on 7th Avenue, we are, of course, requesting a distance separation waiver from other AB establishments, from 250 feet to 0 feet. The two closest businesses selling alcohol are 7-Eleven to the east and Arturo Fuentes, the King Corona cigar, to the west. A quick note on the waiver, as I'm sure council knows, it's basically impossible to meet distance requirements on 7th Avenue right there because it's all bars and restaurants right on top of each other. Some parts of the city, the distance separation requirements are nice and easy, but along that area, there's really no way around a waiver. That being said, Tampa's municipal code has two main sections that address special use criteria. First, there's 27-132. That'll list the regulations for individual special uses. In our case, you're not allowed to have the sales area in a parking or loading area, which we do not. You need to keep a copy of the ordinance and site plan at the business, which we will, and you need to include this language on the site plan, which we have. Second are the general standards for special use 2, and without reading through everything, basically says a special use request can be approved if it ensures public health, safety, welfare, complies with all regulations and standards, is compatible with surrounding property, conforms to the Tampa Comprehensive Plan, and it will not establish a precedent or encourage more intensive or incompatible uses in the surrounding area. To the first point, Sterling Cigar is an upscale cigar shop offering premium cigars, food, and top-shelf beverages for its patrons to enjoy. This will not be a big, loud frat bar or nightclub. The vibe is something akin to a jazz piano bar, light background music for ambiance, and people enjoying cigars, food, and a few drinks. Safety and welfare will be ensured. To the second point, the use complies with all regulations other than the waiver for distance separation, of course. As for compatibility and the rest, similar uses have proven compatible with the surrounding area and Tampa's comprehensive plan. As I said, this is right across the street from Centro Ybor. The immediate surrounding area has various business types with differing clientele, patrons, customers. There are several existing cigar places on 7th, some with food and alcohol as well, and such uses have proven themselves compatible with the area for years. Land Development Coordination describes the YC1 Central Commercial Core as the cultural, social, shopping, and service heart of the original Ybor City Historic District. It discusses how the regulations exist to enhance tourism, culture, and the economy of the area by preserving, among other things, the distinctive architecture. Speaking of which, our architect, John Thompson, as you may know, is a Tampa native and the chair of the Barrio Latino Commission that is responsible for preserving the historic fabric of the Ybor City Historic District and maintaining its architectural integrity. All design guidelines for our new constructions were followed to the letter to ensure the facade of the building blends seamlessly with the surrounding area to create a visually pleasing atmosphere. Mr. Thompson also was commissioned for the historic rehabilitation and renovation of the 7-Eleven storefront that is directly adjacent to us, for which we're requesting the distance separation waiver seen here. Accordingly, approving our special use 2 would not be establishing a precedent for incompatible uses, since it is compatible at that location and is exactly the type of business people expect for that area. And with that, I'll wrap up my presentation. Thank you so much, and we're here to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for the applicant?
If I could, Mr. Chair.
You recognize?
Mr. Barnes, thank you very much for this presentation. Can you tell me why you need the package store to this?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? Why we need
Yeah, why do you need the package store to this?
It's just a business decision to have the quota liquor license in there, so that there's no restrictions as far as restaurant sales percentage or anything like that. And with the quota, you're allowed consumption on premises and package sales.
Is this a microbrewery? Are you selling your own beers and need growler sales?
There is no production of any alcohol on site. There's no
special
brewing.
grains, no special labels,
No, sir.
Nothing made specifically for this business?
No, sir.
Okay. I'm trying to visualize, and I'm not going to give any evidence, but can you maybe take me from 14th Street and 7th Avenue, maybe to 19th Street and 7th Avenue, and give me any other comparable package stores along that route?
I'm not, off the top of my head, no, I don't know of any other comparable package stores along there.
Okay, so this is solely your own necessity, your applicant's necessity to have a package store on 7th Avenue in Ybor City?
Well, it's not just a package store, it's
I understand that, asking for this type of license.
For this type of license, yeah, it's something that allowed, and I'm not sure, maybe Harry might be able to give a more complete answer, but I don't know if they intend to have package sales as a large portion or even a significant portion of their business. But since it is allowed with a quota license, which can be costly, then no reason not to use it.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anyone else? I guess that was my line of questioning myself, Mr. Citro, a package store. You know, why we needed a package store, just curious myself.
Basically, with a quota license, you can have consumption on premise and package sales for off-premises consumption. They're just asking there.
I'm not really concerned with package sales, really, to be honest. If they don't want to do that, if they give it, that's fine.
Council, Ryan Manassi, if I may.
You're recognized, sir.
Thank you, sir. I was just trying to alleviate some of your question, or at least the first question. I was looking on my zoning map, and immediately to the west, 1521 East 7th Avenue, there was an AB2 alcohol petition approved in 2018 for small venue consumption on premise and package sales. I believe that's the King Corona. I'm not trying to talk on that case, obviously, but I just wanted to give you some relevance of establishment because it seemed like that was Councilman Citro's first question.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Go back to the applicant. I think the attorney was conversing with his client.
I was speaking with Mr. Caiaphas, and basically, it's not intended to be a large portion of the business operations, the package sales part. But again, just because it is allowed, there's no reason to not request it.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right, is there anybody else on the second floor to speak on this item?
Eileen Rosario, Development Coordination. There's no one here to speak on this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone registered to speak on this item?
No one is registered for this item.
Ms. Scalco has moved to close. Second by Mr. Miranda. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion granted. Mr. Maniscalco, item number 2, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I have an ordinance being presented for first reading consideration, an ordinance approving a special use permit S2 for alcoholic beverage sales, small venue consumption on premises, and package sales off premises consumption, and making lawful the sale of beverages regardless of alcoholic content, beer, wine, and liquor, on that certain lot, plot, or tract of land located at 1531 East 7th Avenue, Tampa, Florida, as more particularly described in Section 2, providing that all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict are repealed, providing for an effective date. Do we have any waivers to attach?
I don't believe there's a,
No.
No? Okay. Then that is it. I believe that it's, the use
there's
is.
a distance separation waiver.
Yes. Distance
Okay,
separation.
so this is with the distance separation waiver. I believe that this use is compatible with contiguous and surrounding property, being, as we know, how 7th Avenue is generally laid out. The use will not establish a precedent because, again, we have other comparable surrounding areas. They will ensure the public health, safety, and general welfare, and they have met their burden of proof.
Second by Mr. Miranda. Roll call vote, please.
Miranda.
Yes.
Carlson.
No.
Maniscalco.
Yes.
Dingfelder. Citro.
No.
Vieira. And Goods.
Yes.
Motion carried with Carlson and Citro voting no and Dingfelder being absent. Second reading and adoption will be held on December 2nd, 2021 at 9:30 a.m.
All right. Item number 4.
Thanks so much, Zane Hussein, Development Coordination. Agenda item number 4, REZ 21-71. The address is 210 West Columbus Drive, 2511 and 2513 North Ola Avenue. This proposing a rezone from RM24 residential multifamily to PD planned development residential single family attached. I'll now pass it along to the Planning Commission, David Hay.
Good evening, council members. David Hay with your Planning Commission staff, and I have been sworn. The next site rezoning this evening is located within the Central Tampa Planning District, and more specifically the Tampa Heights neighborhood. It is also located within the boundaries of the Tampa Heights Urban Village. There is transit located along West Columbus Drive. West Columbus Drive is served by Hart's Route 15, which connects through the neighborhood to International Plaza and the Net Park Transfer Center. Due to the underlying land use, it is within a mixed-use corridor, and it is also located adjacent to a transit emphasis corridor. There is specific policy direction within the comprehensive plan regarding both of those type of corridors. The closest public recreation facility is Highland Park. That's located approximately a half mile to the southeast of the subject site, and the subject site is not located within an evacuation zone. Here we have an aerial of the subject site. You can see the subject site is here in the center on the south side of West Columbus Drive. The area does have a mixture of residential types. There is some non-residential uses directly to the northeast of the subject site. It's an automotive repair facility. Also further to the north, you have the Waters Career Center. You also have the Boys and Girls Club to the northwest, and also the Villa Madonna School further to the west down Columbus Drive. Here we have the future land use map. You can see the subject site. Properties to the north, south, and east are all within that community mixed use 35 future land use category. Further to the west, in this dark brown, that represents the residential 35 future land use category. And again, as you go down Columbus toward North Boulevard, we get another area of community mixed use 35. To the north, the lighter brown, that's the residential 20. And then as you go north of the generally Warren Avenue, you get into mostly single family detached residential. And then, of course, further to the south is the regional mixed use 100, represented by the purple down near the Heights project. And then you have the red represents the community commercial 35 that does allow for CI uses. Planning Commission staff has reviewed the application and found no adverse impacts to the surrounding area. The existing density on this portion of West Columbus Drive is well under the density anticipated under the Community Mixed Use 35 designation. The request proposes 14 attached single-family units at an overall density of 29.79 units per acre, which is below the density anticipated under that Community Mixed Use 35 future land use designation. It is located within a mixed-use corridor, and the comp plan does look at those areas to transition to a more pedestrian-friendly development pattern over the long range of the comprehensive plan. The plan development addresses the mixed-use corridor policies by placing the proposed residential units close to the public rights-of-way and including the orientation of the front doors to a neighborhood sidewalk and street. The proposed pedestrian connections will help ensure that pedestrians can safely and accessibly access transit and other uses within the corridor, including non-residential uses. The request also supports policies in the comprehensive plan as it relates to housing the city's population. In general, the comprehensive plan is supportive of infill development, especially in areas with transit and employment opportunities. In conclusion, the request is comparable and compatible with the development pattern in this portion of the Tampa Heights neighborhood and is consistent with the long-range development pattern encouraged under that Community Mix 35 future land use category. Furthermore, the request provides additional housing opportunities within the Tampa Heights urban village. Based on those considerations, the Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development consistent with the provisions of the Imagine 2040 Tampa Comprehensive Plan. Thank you, and I'm available if you have any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Hay? All right, no question, Mr. Hay. All right, Zane?
Thank you so much. Zane Hussein, Development Coordination. Case REZ 21-71. The applicant is Columbus Avenue TH LLC. Representative name is Joseph Belusia and Ralph Schuler. The properties at the location 210 West Columbus Drive, 2511 North Ola Avenue, and 2513 North Ola Avenue. There are 3 waivers being requested here. First one, to reduce the required distance or required rear yard distance between buildings from 25.6 feet to 19 feet. Number 2 is to allow unit numbers 9 through 14 to allow ground floor entrances to not face the street right of way. And the third waiver request is to reduce the backup width from 6 feet to 0 feet. As you'll see an aerial of the subject property, to the north you'll see West Columbus Drive. To the west you'll see North Ola Avenue. To the east you'll see North Highland Avenue. And to the south you'll see West Amelia Avenue. You'll see the subject parcel outlined in red. Also here, you'll see that the proposed rezoning is for the development of the property to have residential single-family attached use with 14 units. The property is to the southeast intersection of North Ola Avenue and West Columbus Drive. Surrounding the property, you have residential use to the south, west, and east of the property. To the north of the property, you'll have an automobile repair shop, also residential single-family use. Moving along to the site plan. As you'll see the 14 units here, 7 on the top, 7 here on the bottom. You'll see access to the site from North Ola Avenue here. Parking for the site, there are 32 parking spaces required and 32 parking spaces are being met. The vehicle access, as you'll see, is North Ola Avenue. The height maximum is 38 feet. As I went out to the site, you'll see pictures of the site as it currently is vacant. To the north of the site, you'll see those residential homes. To the northwest of the site, you'll see the residential homes going up and down West Columbus. To the south of the site, you'll see that residential single-family home. To the northeast of the site, you'll see that automotive shop I was talking about. And to the west of the site, again, you'll see a residential single-family home. Development Review and Compliance staff has reviewed the application and finds the overall request inconsistent with the City of Tampa Land Development Code. Please refer to the Transportation Department comments for overall inconsistency findings on this case. Modifications to the site plan must be completed by the applicant between first and second reading as stated on the revision sheet if approved by council. Thank you. I'm here for any questions if needed.
Any questions for staff? All right, we'll hear from the applicant.
Can you guys hear us?
We can hear you. We gotta see you. All right, we can see you now.
You can? All right, great.
Can you swear your hand and be sworn in, please?
Raise your hand.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Can we swear in my husband as well?
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
And can I share screen?
They'll let you share.
Option screen.
You.
Oh, no, wait, oops, sorry. Can you see the screen now?
We see it.
Okay, great, thank you. By way of intro, my name is Martine Eshnazi, and my husband and I are the owners of the lot that we're here to talk about tonight, and we do thank you for your time as we go through this presentation. So, as previously mentioned, we're here before you to request an upzoning from CMU 35 to planned development. In terms of the general location of the lot, just to orient everyone, this lot is located in Tampa Heights. It is on the southeast corner of West Columbus Drive and North Ola Avenue, in particular on that nice arterial road of Columbus there. It's 1 block west of Tampa Street, and it's part of the Tampa Comprehensive Plan and the Central Planning District. Getting more specific, the exact address of these 3 parcels that are congruous that we're here to talk about tonight is 210 Columbus Drive, 215, 2511 North Ola Ave, and 2513 North Ola Ave. In total, it's just under half an acre, about 0.47 acres, and the property has frontage along Columbus Drive and Ola Avenue, and it's also backed onto a very large, wide, 18-foot unimproved alley, which we'll also talk about. The site is not located in an overlay district or in a historic district. In terms of future land use, it is future land use CMU 35. Typical uses in this designation would include general commercial, professional office, multifamily development for density or floor area ratios. This designation does allow up to 30 dwelling units per acre. The subject site would allow under this designation up to 16 units, and we're here to request 14 units. It also makes sure that there's neighborhood services like transit, parking, parkland, schools within a walkable distance, which is definitely true for this site. And then also ensuring that the street design around the site is one that is very pedestrian friendly, allows for bicycle, and make sure that there's a lot of safety considerations in terms of vehicular circulation, given that it is so close to the urban core of Tampa. In terms of the existing land use pattern of the immediate area, which I know has previously been mentioned, but just to go over it again, there's a variety of various uses of the land that immediately surround in the CMU 35 designation. So if you look to the east, you're going to see commercial land and restaurants, and then the immediate eastern neighbor is the Tampa Crossroads, which is a health center and living facility. North of the site across Columbus is that auto body shop. There's a church, a print shop, and 2 multifamily developments. To the south, you have 2 parcels of land that directly are adjacent to the subject property. One is townhomes that have rear loading garages. The other is a single family home with a detached dwelling unit that is on top of a garage. The southeast corner, 5-unit apartment, 2-unit townhomes, vacant land. Essentially, point here being that there's a variety of land uses in the direct vicinity of this subject property. Diving in deeper as to why we're here tonight is the upzoning from RN24 to PD, and here we have our site plan. And so our proposal is for 14 townhomes that are oriented on 2 structures of 7 units each. We are requesting a PD due to 3 waivers that we'll go into a little bit later in the presentation. In terms of the orientation, the units will front Columbus. There's the 6 northern units will front Columbus. The 2 western units will front Ola, and the 6 southern units will going to request that they're able to front that wide 18-foot alley that we would be able to put a pedestrian sidewalk on, have front porches, and really start to engage the surrounding area with that neighborly connection. In terms of the setbacks, the one bordering line of the property that is directly adjacent to additional land, that will have a 20-foot setback along that only shared property line on the east. And then the requested setbacks on the north and the south are 11.5 feet and then 6 feet on the west. This just gives you a rendering and an idea of what we would love to be able to build on this lot. We took a lot of time and really looked to blend both modern architecture, that industrial flat roof that we see in Armature Works, so close to the subject property, but also the brick, the board and batten, and the siding materials that are really unique and well used within the Tampa Heights area as part of the charm of Tampa Heights. And so we really wanted to take things like Armature Works that have become part of the neighborhood, but also that brick, that siding, that board and batten that is so unique to Tampa Heights, and make sure that that was incorporated into the property. So really taking a lot of note of the surrounding areas for it to fit in. Overall, we feel that this is a super balanced project. The first is that each unit is going to provide private courtyard space for every family or resident that's in this unit. And there's going to be 270 degrees of new sidewalks that basically go along the north, the west, and the south of the property. And so really looking to engage that pedestrian-friendly part that is really part of the future use of this within the zoning comp plans for the neighborhood. And so each unit will have this private courtyard. There'll be front porches on all parts that front these courtyards and these sidewalks to really encourage the neighborly connection and overall community of the neighborhood, which we know is something that Tampa Heights cares a lot about. Additional amenities that we would be able to provide the residents is a dedicated dog park so that our furry members of the community have their own space as well. There will be a tree planting strategy around the entire periphery of the development to really make sure that we can both provide privacy from the development for other neighbors, provide a lot of additional greenery into the neighborhood, and really make sure that it engages well with the sidewalks. Our goal would be to use pervious pavers for the center drive aisle, which would be more aesthetically pleasing, but also be great for drainage. There's a 20-foot setback, as I mentioned, from the only shared property line on the east. And really want to point out that with this balanced project, we are meeting 100% of the parking requirements and the green space requirements by code. Those are not waivers that we are requesting here tonight. In terms of if we were to be afforded the opportunity to come for phase 2 of this conversation, we will be sure to include all of any staff requested changes. You will also see the site plan take more into account open air covered porches, and that is really something that we've heard feedback from the neighborhood association about, and would be compatible with the vision for the neighborhood. This is not something that we would need a waiver for. It's already allowed on planned developments up to 8 feet, and so it would just be more specific on the site plan that we would show this inclusion. And the other thing that we will show when we if we are afforded the opportunity to come back and talk about this development, we would make sure to show the inclusion of bike racks and where those would be located on the site plan as well. So kind of diving into a bit more specifics about it. So our proposed density of the 14 units is less than the allowable density for CMU 35 in the category. We do address the mixed use policies by placing the units close to the right of way and providing the majority of the entrances along public streets. So just to kind of go back to that point, 8 of our units would have frontage along public streets. The 270 degrees of new sidewalks that we would be putting in is really to ensure that there is a lot of pedestrian-friendly infrastructure there, and that we've chosen one singular central drive aisle so that there's really only one place for cars to come in and out, one place for pedestrians to be mindful of that traffic, and so that there's a lot more pedestrian safety that comes with this plan. And we think that it's part of the furthering City of Tampa's vision for the demand of housing supply and being able to do this on 3 pieces of land that are currently vacant and underutilized. Overall, we know that the Planning Commission deemed this project consistent for these various reasons. diving in a little bit deeper about the urban neighborhoods that this development is in and the comprehensive policies that surround it. The first is that we locate higher density in or near the downtown core. Obviously, Tampa Heights is very close to downtown Tampa, but also this higher density is going to be on an arterial road of Columbus, and so it's more on the periphery of the neighborhood. This sensitive design in site planning and urban neighborhoods to make sure we're going to have that aggressive tree planting strategy to almost like not hide, but to soften the development within the neighborhood and really allow it to blend in. And that's also why we're using the brick, the siding, the board, and Battleford to blend into the neighborhood more. But those 270-degree sidewalks would be really important for pedestrian access, making sure that pedestrians have an easy way to move through the neighborhood, knowing that this is such a walkable and bikeable community. And then also really important to have those tree-lined sidewalks and include small public spaces and appropriate pedestrian amenities, which we are excited that we are not going to be needing or asking for any green space waivers as a part of this, and that we will have that dog park for the residents of the development, as well as the overall green space and those small courtyards that each resident will be able to have for that outdoor living that's so great when you live in Florida and can have it all year round. Additional things on the comprehensive plan policies, really just also that these single-family attached housing units and the slightly higher amount densities on the periphery of the neighborhood. Again, this subject is located directly on Columbus Avenue. We think that on the peripheries where density is probably more preferable, and then it's also only 1 block west of Tampa Street. So it's on right close to that major north to south thoroughfare, and it's on the major east to west and west to east thoroughfare that cuts through the neighborhood on Columbus. As Zane went through, there was one minor inconsistency found by transportation. It was found consistent by all other departments, and we'll go into that on the following slide. So I won't harp on that too much right now. In terms of addressing the 3 waivers that we are here to, what we would request as part of the plan development, the first is to reduce the required rear yard distance between the buildings from 25 feet 6 inches to 19 feet. The goal for that and why we are requesting it is by making the buildings become closer together. So if you can think about these units here would be closer together than and what we would need the waiver for. What is allowing us to have no green space requirement. It still also provides really nice functional unit sizes for hopefully the future residents of the neighborhood. Each unit would have a 2-car concealed garage, and so we're able to meet all of the parking requirements as well. And so that is one waiver that we're asking for, to reduce the distance between the 2 buildings. The second waiver that we are asking for, I'll direct your attention to this highlighted area on the right of the screen here, is that we would ask that we not have the backup turning radius of 6 feet and reduce that to 0 feet. There's still going to be about 25 feet for each of these cars to back up and then be able to turn into the center drive aisle. But our request is that we are able to not have that backup turning radius almost to the east, but they're able to directly reverse and then turn into the center drive aisle. And then the third waiver that we are here, that we would request as part of the plan development, would be to allow units 9 through 14, their ground floor entrances to not face the street or right of way, but instead they would face the extra wide alley. So there's a multitude of reasons as to why we think that this presents a more balanced development for the neighborhood, and so I'll go into those right now. The first is that by putting all of the garages facing each other in that center drive aisle, that does allow us to install those 270 degrees of sidewalks, new sidewalks into the neighborhood, which really will encourage that pedestrian connectivity. It would also, as we improve the entire alley as part of this and put in place a sidewalk that's actually on the alley, you can think about pedestrians would now have an additional option. Instead of just only walking down Columbus, which is obviously a busy road, they would also be able to cut over on the alley between Ola and Highland. And so that's one of the reasons why, is to allow that very wide alley to have community engagement, to have pedestrian engagement on it. As I mentioned, it's an extra wide alley. Most alleys in the vicinity and in this kind of southwest quadrant of Tampa Heights are 10 feet wide. This is an extra wide alley, it's 18 feet wide, and so we really want to take advantage of that and use it as more of a pedestrian engagement opportunity. Additionally, as there's been various parts of my presentation, the same printout, there are two neighbors that we would share the alley with this development, and we've reached out to those neighbors. So there's a set of townhomes and then a single family home with an detached unit and a garage. And their preferences is that the alley not be that congested with those 7 garages on it. They would actually prefer the pedestrian walkway. They would prefer privacy tree and the frontage on it. And so their preference from a safety standpoint and overall, I would say living standard standpoint was that we face the units towards the alley and face the garages away from the alley. Additionally, that would allow us to have continue our aggressive tree planting schedule, and then on that south-facing elevation, our goal would be to install a privacy tree buffer made of things like junipers or cypresses.
All right.
There's also precedent.
Okay, ma'am. All right. That's your time. That's your time.
Thank you.
You repeat this, I haven't.
Okay, thank you, I'm sorry.
You're fine, young lady. Any questions for the applicant? Do we have Jonathan for transportation on there?
Yes, sir. Jonathan from Transportation Planning.
Jonathan, tell me what the inconsistency with the alley, with the transportation, with the driveway. I think it's the driveway in the alley. The turn used to turn.
It's just the backup of those visitor spaces that we're objecting to. Typically, you have like 6 feet of backup. If you're looking at the visitor spaces, it's all the way to the right. But it's kind of a minor thing, you know. It's just kind of a tricky backup to make, so we object, you know, to that waiver. But the applicant has demonstrated, you know, someone can still kind of maneuver back and then come out of it. It's just a little bit. We still object to the waiver, I guess. If that answers your question.
Okay, but you say one thing. You say it's minor, but then you say it's, you know, you object to it. So, to me, I mean, are we objecting to it regardless of matter? We're totally objecting to the project, this particular waiver, correct?
Correct. Yeah, we still object to the waiver.
All right. Any other questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair, do we have someone from Natural Resources?
Natural Resources.
Good evening, council members.
Do you need to be sworn
Here
in?
and Mayor. I was sworn, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for being here. The inconsistency that I see here on their application, I noticed from the aerial view there was a lot of trees and a lot of tree canopy. Is your inconsistency because trees have to be taken out, or the overabundance of having to trim?
So I was consistent actually with this. Many of the trees on site, 8 trees on the parcel, 4 of them have been deemed dangerous. A lot of them are laurel oaks, and they have various signs of decline. There are some with cavities, decay, dying crowns. They have, many of them have elevated risk of failures. And then there are a few camphor trees that are around the edges of the parcel, which the code allows for reduced mitigation and removal of those trees. If they are, so we believe that there are a few other trees on site. Some of those trees would be, like there is a live oak. The live oak is, it's C9 rated. It is a hazardous tree. I can show you a picture of it if you'd like to see.
That is fine with me. I was just going back on the reports here, and the only inconsistency was with Natural Resources.
I thought we had found this consistent natural resources.
Then I will take your word for it. Thank you. You know, Mr. Chair, I'm going to say one thing now, if I can. I applaud the applicant's desire to use the alleyway in the manner in which they're suggesting. There are a lot of places around this country that are taking alleyways, especially wide alleyways like this, and use multi-purpose, whether it be a sidewalk or bike pedestrian, or allow kids to play so they're not playing in crowded streets. I may not agree with everything on this application, but I do applaud them for that.
Is Jonathan still there?
Yes, sir.
Were there any suggestions made to the applicant in reference to that alleyway, the driveway situation?
Well, we didn't really have anything except, provide backup, but it's, if they provided backup, they would lose the parking space. So it's kind of like, do you want to have a parking waiver or a backup waiver? It's just kind of a tight situation.
So if we lose a parking space, we'll be able to, if we lose a parking space, per se, you'll be able to get the radius to be able to back out of there, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. You would get built to back up if you hatched out one of the spaces, but it's one of those things, well, you could still back out of it, but it's just a little bit tricky, it's only in situations like this where the backup is tricky, when you're all the way kind of like at the back of the courtyard, so to say, in those last two spaces. If you're the guy pulling into that space, it is difficult to back out of it, but you would have to come straight down and just turn out of it. It's possible to do. It's just we object to the.
Well, that sounds to me, Eugene, because it's a safety measure to me. Where you're describing it.
One could say that it's a maneuverability safety issue. You could say that. I don't know if it's that big of a concern, but it's an objection we have. The most ideal, let's say the most ideal situation would be provide 6 feet of backup. So if you come in those spaces, you can back up. If anything less than that, it's tricky to back out of. So it's just kind of a tight backup.
All right, thank you, Jonathan. All right, anyone else for the applicant? All right, anyone here to speak on this item?
Eileen Rosario, Development and Coordination. There are 3 people here to speak on this item, and all 3 persons have been sworn in. Thank you.
All right, bring them on, Ms. Eileen.
Here you go.
Thank you for your time, City Council. I appreciate it. My name is Justin Rickey. I'm Tampa Heights resident. I live at 103 East 26th Avenue, Tampa, Florida. I'm here on behalf of the Tampa Heights Civic Association. I'm here in a formal capacity. I'm about to read you our executive board's official response to this project. So here we go. The Tampa Heights Civic Association lends its conditional support to the rezoning application REZ 21-71 at 210 West Columbus Drive. We initially wrote to you with strong objections to the site plan. After granting the applicant a continuance, they engaged with our group and the surrounding homeowners and offered to make adjustments to the plan. Our position is tied to the changes made in the attached plans dated as of 10/20/2021. The changes include revised elevations, including the use of brick and hardy siding to complement the predominant architectural style of Tampa Heights. The addition of the front porches to all units, wraparound porch on the units front on Ola Avenue, treating of the Ola Avenue units as true building fronts, using opaque building materials for porch railings, and the addition of tall shade trees along the alley for privacy concerns. These are all welcome changes, and the THCA appreciates the applicant's attention to compatibility. An additional issue not shown on the current site plan is the alley access. THCA has discussed this in depth with the applicant, and we propose 2 acceptable options to the neighborhood. One, that the 7 units facing the alley be reversed, thereby taking half the vehicle pressure off the single Ola Avenue driveway and eliminating the need for a waiver, or 2, that the alley access shown on the original site plan be restored at the southeast corner of the property. The applicant has stated the second option would trigger the need for a green space waiver. The additional waivers is not ideal. If the applicant cannot reduce density for green space, then a small waiver would be acceptable to the THCA. THCA believes our historic alleys should be used for vehicular access as originally intended and allows traffic dispersal in multiple directions. We have concerns about concentrating 32 vehicles in and out of a single access point on Ola Avenue, which is slated by Florida Department of Transportation, City of Tampa, to become a bike boulevard. Allowing vehicles other ingress-egress options away from Ola Avenue is more of a bike and pedestrian-friendly solution that is consistent with THCA positions on other rezonings that have been brought before this council. There's also support for this in the Tampa Comprehensive Land Use Policy 1.2.26 states implement development standards that require buildings to be oriented to and actively engage in and complete the public realm. These standards will address features such as building orientation to the street, build to and setback lines, facade articulation, ground floor transparency, and location of parking, etc. In the DRC report for the application, the planning
30
commission.
seconds, sir.
Oh man, I'm gonna go at it. In the DRC report for the application, the Planning Commission review states the comprehensive plan supports vehicular access provided to units via the alley. Based on neighborhood feedback, not all in Tampa Heights are universally satisfied with the site plan. If the applicant agrees to the previously stated conditions and council approves the direction on vehicle access issue, then THCA removes its prior objection to the rezoning. Thank you very much, Tampa Heights Civic Association.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next speaker.
We have a speaker here, Councilman, that he would like to donate his time
Okay.
to the gentleman that was just speaking. He would, and this is his waiver.
You can't do that. He can't donate now.
Well, can,
So next to the speaker behind, coming up next, but I don't think you can do it now.
Okay.
did he want to take it, does the speaker who's standing behind there want to waive all his time to give this gentleman an extra minute?
Sir, where's the other sir? You? The other gentleman. You have to come up here.
Yes, I'd like to waive my time.
We can hear you.
You'd like
Yes,
to,
I'd like to waive my time.
for an extra minute for this gentleman from the Tampa Heights Civic Association?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, it's your call if that's something you wish to do.
All right.
As long as this gentleman understands he's not able to speak, he's giving up his time. Thank
All
you.
right, 1 minute.
Okay.
So I'm going to continue where I left off, and then I'll get back to that. There's also support for this in the Tampa Comprehensive Plan. Oh, no, I was there. Based on neighborhood feedback, not all in Tampa Heights are universally satisfied with the site plan despite the aforementioned compromises. Allowing waivers for alley-facing units on the site could set a precedent for future developments. Aesthetic changes are greatly appreciated, especially in light of the neighborhood's desire for more compatible architecture. But the THCA feels this accommodation should be the starting point, not the bare minimum for neighborhood support. Many of the urban design issues could be eliminated without upzoning from 11 to 14 units or by building a different unit type than townhomes that allows vertical stacking of units. However, this applicant is very active in Tampa Heights, and in the spirit of compromise and a new chapter in this relationship, THCA would like to chart a path forward. If the applicant agrees to the previously stated conditions and council provides direction on the vehicle access issue, then THCA removes its prior objection to the rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, my name is Doug Phillips, and I live at 312 West Francis Avenue in Tampa Heights. I have been sworn in, and I just am here to express my desire to have you disapprove this plan development, mostly on the grounds that the Tampa Heights Civic Association just talked about, and also the parking and traffic issues that seems like are a problem. Also, I didn't hear anybody talk about what the garbage pickup is going to be. 14 units of those big blue garbage cans. Where are they going to put them? What are they going to do with them? It seems like some of the objections that everybody's talking about can be remedied with just less units. So, sorry, nervous. The basic idea is that the current zoning will allow for, I think, 8 units, if I'm right. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's enough. That's enough units. It's going to totally increase the density and accomplish a lot of the goals that the woman was talking about, the applicant. And bonus, you'd get more green space. And you'd be able to park in the garages and not create danger for driving. So anyway, that's about all I have to say about that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else to speak on this item on the second floor?
That is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone registered to speak on this item?
Yes, Chair, we have 6 people registered right now. I have 2 that's available, and that's Daniel George and Camilla Altuyon.
All right, we'll go with the 2 that are available then. Raise your right hands and be sworn.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
We'll go with, I don't have them on my screen right here, I'm sorry. They're not on the screen on. No, they're still not on the screen. Just go with the first you got. All right,
Mr.
Dan George?
Okay.
Hi, Council. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Council, thank you this evening. I'll keep it very short and sweet. My name is Dan George. My wife and I are residents of the Tampa Heights community. We actually live adjacent to the proposed development, sharing the alley. And just to specify, we are not a garage vehicular shared alley. We just live parallel to the alley. And we would like to just voice our support of the proposed project. We are very familiar with the builder's design and quality, and we believe that the design would do nothing but raise the quality of the neighborhood. And that is all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Is that Camilla? I can't hear you. Can you unmute yourself? Maybe you can help her, Madam Deputy Clerk. You have to unmute yourself on your end.
There's an orange mic on the panel. Just click that to unmute yourself.
Okay.
We got you.
Hello. Yay. Sorry. So I actually am going to be moving into the neighborhood. My fiance and I own a property there that we're going to be building our home on. And I think this project is great for the neighborhood simply because it'll offer, walkability and new homes for people, and it'll allow, the new residents to support the businesses and, provide new people to live there to support new businesses that come in as well. And I see a lot of these projects with similar type of layouts and site plans in South Tampa. And I think they're great. They allow for density, and it's an urban core area, which I think it should be allowed in.
Anything
Especially
else?
that close.
Or anything else?
No.
All right.
And I think the design is pretty.
All right. Thank you. We have anybody else waiting?
We have Mr. Roderick King and Jason Burgess online. However, I cannot elevate them. I know Jason stated that he's on an iPhone, but iPhone does not work on this
not
platform.
compatible, right?
Right. And Mr. Roger King, the same thing. I cannot elevate them if they're not on the correct device.
All right. That's unfortunate. All right. Well, we'll have to move right along then. Back to the applicant. I have one question. Is this mixed-use affordable housing or development?
No, it's currently not designated for affordable housing.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. All right, Mr. Carlson?
Just to the applicant, the neighborhood association requested 2 or 3 things. Do you have a response to that, or are you plan on sticking with your current proposal?
Sorry, this is Stephen Ashkenazi. So I think the question that they were raising was along, and I can show it here, is they were looking to eliminate this dog park amenity and reorient the visitor parking to be along here and have the drive-through aisle. The challenge we have is we're trying to balance both all the feedback we're getting. The Tampa Heights, Civic Association, we certainly value their feedback, and we've been happy to continue to work with them. I think that the challenge is this also goes against the immediate surrounding neighbors that have encouraged us I shouldn't say fine with the concept, but they're opposed to having this density of cars utilizing the alley. And then furthermore, we had a inconsistent finding from Natural Resources that was able to be offset by us reorienting our drive aisle, adding this dog park amenity, and now meeting all those requirements. So, the challenge we're having is that we have to balance all the feedback. And, I think we're putting a lot of merit into the neighbors that are sharing this alley. One spoke already, and another individual that we've had in-person meetings with, and he provided his support of this plan in lieu of the previous plan that the Tampa Heights Civic Association is going on. So I think in lieu of that, I think we still have, we do think this is a very strong and balanced project.
Just one question of legal real fast. And if the applicant, if their application is approved tonight and they meet with the neighborhood association in between, how much could they make changes between first reading and second reading without having to reapply? Is there a set rule on how much they could change or what they could change?
If I may, Councilman Carlson, I'd like to defer to Ryan Manassi on that question, since staff is very involved in reviewing site plans between first and second reading and what would trigger the need possibly to go back to DRC.
Thank you, Kate. Council, good evening, Ryan Manassi. Just to clarify, because I'm sure there's some questions. Stephen originally was coming to you, this is a continued case to this date, with that access. Before the hearing, it was requested that he revise that site plan and add this dog park or green space to eliminate a waiver. So between that continuance and now, staff revised the staff report, which eliminated the inconsistency from Natural Resources, but still had the transportation inconsistency. Just to clarify that. So what's being presented before you today is his revision based off of, and Stephen can correct me if I'm wrong, him talking to the surrounding neighborhood. And I believe tonight you've heard from both sides. You heard from the organizations as well as the immediate neighbors. And what I believe Stephen was saying was he's bringing forward what the immediate neighbors requested. As far as to answer Councilman Carlson's question, typically 2 or more reviewers, we should be continuing these cases out to another first reading. I hate to just anticipate that this change to just add the access wouldn't, be exactly the same as what staff previously reviewed before this revised staff report was brought to you. But we'd probably have to extend the second reading out a bit to ensure that those changes were accurate. And staff would have to almost do another review just to make sure it's not triggering any additional waivers. So it does become a little hectic with these kind of continuances, with these designs getting changed, especially when it has to do with ingress, egress, green space, backups and such.
Ms. Citro, you recognize.
Ms. Wells, if they were to receive a no vote on this tonight, they would have the option of coming back within a year with a major design site plan change. If not, they would have to wait a full year to reapply.
If you don't mind, I'd also like to defer to Ryan. I know he's got that language down, and I don't want to misinterpret anything because I don't have it at my fingertips.
Mr. Manasseh, you heard my question. If it was denied today, they could change their site plan and bring it back sooner than the 1 year that is required for them to wait to resubmit, correct?
If the Ryan Manasseh Development Coordination, if the zoning administrator deems that the denial was, the changes based off the denial were met with their revised plan, we've seen that similarly before, so it does have to be verified that if council were to deny this tonight, that any change would address that denial.
Thank you, Mr. Manasseh. Thank you, Ms. Wells. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I guess I don't know why I thought this was an affordable housing project, but my main concern is getting clarification on the alley driveway situation. The safety concern. That's where I'm at right now, trying to, listening to what Jonathan has told me, but then not getting a straight answer in reference to the safety of that. And that's a concern for me right now in reference to the feasibility of that car trying to get out of there and in there and not causing an accident with another vehicle. That's a major concern for me right now. That may be something that the applicant may need to look at to see how they can revise that to get that situation. I can live with everything else, but vehicles, it's an automobile that can hurt someone, so that's a concern for me. Anyone else? Ms. Wells?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to ask a question for the record because I thought I've heard two different things with respect to comments about this being an affordable housing project. I'm not aware of any notes on the site plan that would make this an affordable housing project. So if you could confirm that for the record.
This is not an affordable housing project.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right, no other questions for the applicant. Any close? Ms. Miranda?
I have mixed feelings about like what was said earlier, but I don't want to see this thing go up or down today. So I don't like to have continuance, I really don't. But I'm just speaking to the applicant. What do you feel you would like to do? You want to take a vote today, or you want to consider some changes mentally that you might have?
Is Jonathan Scott still available? Because I guess I have a question. If we were to increase the distance between the two visitor parking spaces from the 24.5 feet to 30 feet, would that offset the need to have the 6-foot backup radius? Because we can also still provide a 2 or 3 foot section to the east as well for them to have that, as well as like a 30-foot distance between their visitor parking spaces.
Council Chair, if I may, before he answers, we're kind of we're designing on the fly here, and I understand Stephen's concern, but if we increase the parking, it could affect the green space, and then that's another calculation we have to do. I think Jonathan alluded to earlier was if they were to remove one parking space, that would eliminate the transportation waiver, but it would create another waiver for the reduction in required parking. So it's a catch, it's a catch-22. Do we reduce the parking by one, which is a requirement, with Jonathan will still be inconsistent based off of transportation requirements, or does he keep the visitors facing parking as is and take a waiver on the backup? And Stephen, not to cut you off, I just want to be clear so council understands, just moving them 5-10 feet in or out, give you more backup space. There's calculations that have to be done on both sides of natural resources and transportation to ensure compliance.
Yeah. If I may, and I understand that, Mr. Manasseh, I appreciate it very much, but sometimes you want to put more units of what you can accommodate to meet all the requirements that the city has in place. So it's up to the petitioner. They know what they've got, they know what they have, and they know what the cost of things, not me. I just vote the way I see it, like the rest of us. It's up to them to decide what they want to do, not I.
That's pretty big coming from you. That's continuous.
Well, I said it at the beginning.
Yeah, it's pretty big from you.
I'm not. This may be the first in my
history.
history.
That's what I'm saying. It's pretty big, folks, for Mr. Miranda to say maybe you want to consider before we take a vote. We can't, force you, but if you think you you need a little more time to look at some of the things that hear some of the things we've talked about to consider and come back. I always give deference to Mr. Miranda because he normally doesn't say that at all. Well, we can go up or down vote for you tonight. It's your pleasure.
So, council, I guess I guess I'm curious to get some feedback because you're asking if you guys would like to vote, but I guess other than the parking concerns, is there other concerns that you have on the site plan?
Well, I think Mr. Carlson and a few talked about the neighbors. Maybe again, nothing's ever going to be perfect, but if we can get a little close, it's always good to get a little close and then say, hey, there were compromises made. So again, it's your pleasure. We can't force you, but again, Mr. Miranda, who's we call it a legend on here, he never talks about continuously. So I'm a little surprised. So we can, if you'd like to hold off and come back to us, or we can go up or down vote tonight.
What would be the options as it relates to the continuance, Ryan?
Ryan Manassi with Development Coordination. Council, the only request I would have would be specifics on what the applicant is actually modifying between this time of bringing it back to you for the continuance.
Ms. Wells?
The other item that I wanted to bring to council's attention, if this is continued, the 180 days by which action needs to be taken or extenuating circumstances must be found. That deadline is December 25th.
I don't have an issue with it because, like I said, Mr. Miranda normally doesn't jump out the box. So,
Do we have a full schedule, though?
Do we? What do we have, Ryan?
What would you like, sir? I guess I would just have to ensure that, are we talking about Mr. Ashkenazi adding the drive access again to the alley? So reestablishing that and reducing his green space requirement?
I would say so on my end, just because of the safety concern about, that driveway and backing in and out. I know Mr. Carlson was making sure that the residents, the community association had some of their needs looked at again. Is that correct, Mr. Carlson?
Yeah, and I wasn't I wasn't speaking about anything in particular. Just that there are still several concerns that are competent, substantial evidence. On the other hand, the applicant obviously spent a lot of time looking at this, and the presentation was it was long, but it was very thoughtful and had a lot of ideas and that showed that the applicant had talked to the community and was considering the style and architecture of the community as well. So.
Mr. Chair, also, it's been a while since I heard Mr. Ricky speak, but I believe he also had some other thought about that of the neighborhood association, and a thought about flipping one of the houses for just flipping one of the buildings so that there would be entrance from the street. If memory serves me correctly, was that?
I believe so.
Yes. Okay. So that might also be something. They go back to the neighborhood association.
Mr. Carlson,
could I ask? Sorry, this was my question that maybe brought on some of this. Just Brian, or could you please just tell us again the 2 or 3 changes that the applicant is discussing right now? Can they be done between first and second reading, or do we have to have a continuance?
I'm not sure of the changes, sir. Ryan Manassi, Development Coordination. I mean, if again, this was a continued case, and Mr. Ashkenazi brought before it was continued was he did have access to the alley. So then when, as far as I understand from talking to Mr. Ashkenazi, he talked to the neighborhood, and the neighborhood didn't want the access to the alley. And Stephen, please correct me if I'm wrong. So he asked for a continuance, redesign, so staff re-reviewed the plan in a short amount of time to revise our staff report, which again dropped that alley access. And so if we do this, I mean, I would need to know exactly what Mr. Ashkenazi wants to change between this continuance and the possible rehearing to determine if if we start moving buildings and such, he may have to go back through a DRC.
Correct.
you know, so there's a fine threshold before we start getting into too many changes where I don't want staff to miss out on something without it being properly reviewed by council and staff. I'm sorry not to give you, I don't know the changes. It'd be, you know, up to the applicant, what changes he's wanting to present to me, I guess, right now, and me trying to determine whether or not.
Brian, out of curiosity, I think what the question from talking to the neighborhood association would be the same exact plan that was already reviewed and had the staff report and all the DRC comments already on it, using that site plan with the inclusion of the elevation changes, which are not being reviewed, as well as the adding in the open porches, which again would be allowed by right under the current zoning. So that would be, it's already went through the DRC in the site, the staff report. So that would be basically kind of, that's the challenge we had. We're trying to balance everything, but yes, it was already reviewed by the staff, that particular site plan. No changes to that particular one.
And I'm aware of that. It's just, if that's council's direction, I mean, we could say the previously submitted plan, I guess, and I do have Aaron, our natural resources reviewer, on the line, and we were looking up the waivers that were previously reported. So it would be adding a green space waiver, and she could possibly be inconsistent at that point. So, and council and Kate can correct me if I'm wrong, that's not guaranteeing Mr. Ashkenazi that when he comes back, that council would be in favor of that change. So it's a trade-off, you know, it's almost like a trade-off here.
I think the big thing with council, when you talk about safety and that parking, that alley, I think that's, for me, that's a biggie for me. I don't know about the councilman, but I think that's a.
Chairman Goose, if I could just clarify, there's no parking on the alley. The backup width is in regards to the internal to the site and its eastern boundary. So where they would require almost a hammerhead, which is what we kind of call that little backup, where the car can start turning as they back up, it's called a hammerhead, and then they need the 6 feet for that. So that's what Jonathan was alluding to, where they're going from the 6 feet to 0. And I believe Ms. Ashkenazi was stating that they have 24 feet. I'm sorry, I don't have the plan in front of me. So they're saying they could back out straight and go forward. And that's where Jonathan was saying she was presenting something that could be an alternative to that. It doesn't meet the technical standards, but I believe that was her justification for the waiver. But there's no parking on the alley. There's no access onto the alley with the site plan that's presented to you.
All right, well, when I keep asking, we talking about turning, you're saying an alternative. So what, if there's an alternative, then let's go with the alternative, if that's the case, for them getting in and out.
Council, if I may, I'm really concerned that the city council is now redesigning a site plan, and that's not the purpose of these rezoning hearings. There's an application before you, and unless the applicant is willing to ask for continuance, then there should be a vote this evening on the application that is before you, and not an extended discussion on all the different alternatives that could possibly be proposed here to address concerns expressed by the neighborhood.
Thank you, Ms. Wells.
Thank you, Ms. Wells. Well, folks, you've heard it from our land use attorney. So in that case, I'll ask again, you want to go back, or do you want to up or down vote, and we can move on?
So I think we'd be open to the continuance, but I share Ryan's sentiments that I think we'd appreciate some guidance in terms of what we are going to be working on in regards to that.
Mr. Chairman, I can't, I was a maker of the motion of the continuance. I withdraw it because I don't want to be accused from what I hear from the applicant asking to redesign the project, and I don't want to do that. So I'll withdraw my motion.
All right.
Okay. We'll take a continuance then, Ryan.
No, you got. I'm not asking for continuance.
Yeah, he's not. Mr. Rayner is not asking it. That's up to you. If you need to go back or whatever you need to do, you can tell me that, and I can ask for approval of this board to go forward with that and get some dates from Mr. Manasseh, or we can go forward up or down vote.
We are open to having a continuance to make further revisions to the site plan.
If I may, Mr. Chair. If I may. I hear from the applicants they're open to a continuance. If I may, I would make the motion for continuance.
May we have a date, if we can, from staff?
Date from staff.
Thank you.
Ryan Manassi, Development Coordination. Council, I'll just briefly go through our calendar, and I know you guys have seen this, so you know all my marks. You're pretty full December, January. 127, which is an alcohol night. We just had one continuance onto that tonight. So that's 12 cases on 127. The February 10th has 10 new rezoning spaces. And it looks like we had 2 get continued there tonight. So that's 12 cases. And then 224, which is an alcohol night, has 11 cases.
Well, Mr. Chair, going back to Ms. Wells' statement, that goes past the 180 days.
Yep.
And we would need to show extenuating circumstances, Kate? Ms. Wells, sorry?
That is correct.
And sorry, and that would be defined by, I guess, by council as being extenuating, or, and my apologies for it. I haven't gone through that process before.
Correct. City council would have to make the finding of extenuating circumstances as presented by you.
Okay. And that would be determined right now, or that would be determined in advance of the?
If it's going to be continued beyond 180 days, that finding would have to be made tonight before the item is continued.
If I
Understood.
Ms. Veer?
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I mean, I want to, these folks, as we have all said, have given such a detailed presentation, and they've put so much effort into it, and I think we're almost there that, I mean, I don't want to see this, I think it's good to do the continuance and just give them some deference in that regard, given their presentation, the detail, the effort, et cetera. Just my thoughts.
Ryan, give me that date again on a max of a 13.
Max number 13, sir. We would be 13 if you want to put them January 20th, which is a rezoning night.
All right, give them January 20th then.
Well,
May I, Council Chair, one thing?
Go ahead.
I would just want to be sure we have some kind of timeline depicted at if I'm going to get revised plans, so staff has sufficient time to review whatever modifications Mr. Eskenazi is going to provide. January 20th, I'd expect plans for that cycle on 12/2.
December 2nd, Mr. Chairman, Martin
Yes.
Shelby. Could you make inquiry of Mr. Eskenazi? Did you hear the date when you'd have to submit site plans, revised site plans?
Yes, that's perfectly acceptable.
And also, Mr. Chairman, if I can inquire of Mr. Manassi. Mr. Manassi, there's a rather extensive revision sheet. Would this include adjustments to the site plan based on your revision sheet?
I would be fine with Mr. Eskenazi going and making those changes to the revision sheet as stated in the staff report tonight, to include, I guess, whatever modifications you'll be speaking to the neighborhood. I just can't comment on what revisions may be after that, once we get the revised plan on 12/2.
You would re-review it, and if adjustments have to be made to that sheet, you would bring that back to council in your staff report?
That is correct, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mr. Vieira has put the continuous on the floor for January 20th, was it, Ryan?
Yes, sir. At
Time.
5:01 p.m., please.
5:01 p.m., second by Mr. Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Those are difficult ones, you know? All right, item
Thanks so
number
much,
6.
Zane Hussein. Sorry about it. Thanks so much, Zane Hussein, Development Coordination. Item number 7. I'm sorry. Are we on
6.
item number 6? I'm sorry. Item number 6, RZ 21-80. This is for rezoning of 6309 North 15th Street. Proposed rezoning from SHRH, Seminole Heights Residential Single Family, to SHPD. Seminole Heights Plan Development Residential Single Family Detached. I'll now pass it along to David Hay from the Planning Commission.
Good evening, council members. David Hay with your Planning Commission staff. I have been sworn. Our last rezoning for the night, we remain in Central Tampa Planning District for this last case, this zoning last case. It is located within the old Seminole Heights neighborhood. It also falls within the boundaries of the Seminole Heights urban village. The closest public recreation facility is McDougall Park, which is approximately half mile northwest of the subject site. There is transit within 3/4 of a mile of the subject site out on Nebraska Avenue, and the site is not located within an evacuation zone. And we have an aerial of the subject site. We've got North 15th Street running north-south. We've got North Street running east-west. And you can see the predominant pattern is all single-family detached. You can see the park up here in the upper left. And then you have the campus for Foster Elementary School and Sly Middle is what you're seeing in northeast of the subject site. This facility to the northwest of the subject site is the Living Faith Bible Fellowship Church. Onto the future land use map, there's pretty consistent pattern throughout the area. All the parcels within the surrounding area all are within that residential 10. There is blue representing the public, quasi-public associated with the school. We have the green to the northwest representing the park under the rec open space category. Again, this rezoning is to permit 2 detached single-family residential units. The subject site, again, is within that residential 10. Under that residential 10, the site can be considered for a maximum of 3 residential units. The applicant is asking for 2. The Planning Commission staff reviewed the application and found no adverse impacts to the surrounding neighborhood. This portion of North 15th Street between East Lambright Street and East Anna Avenue, excluding the subject site, has an existing density of 5.39 units per acre. The portion on East North Street between 13th Street and North 15th Street, excluding the subject site, has an existing density of 5.29 units per acre. The request, again, proposes 2 detached single-family units at an overall density of 5.74 units per acre, which is below the density anticipated under the residential 10 future land use designation and is comparable and compatible to that surrounding densities on within the surrounding area. In conclusion, the request is comparable and compatible with the development pattern in the old Seminole Heights neighborhood and is consistent with the long-range development pattern envisioned under the residential 10 future land use category. And it also provides housing opportunities within the Seminole Heights Urban Village, which is infrastructure policy, 1.1.17 promotes. Based on those considerations, the Planning Commission staff finds the proposed rezoning consistent with the provisions of the Imagine 2040 Tampa Comprehensive Plan. That concludes my presentation. I'm available if you have any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Hay? All right, staff?
Thanks so much, Zain Hussein, Development Coordination. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Case REZ 21-80, the applicant and representative is Stephen Dolinsky, property address 6309 North 15th Street. This is proposing that rezone from SHRS, residential single-family detached, to SHPD, residential single-family detached. The proposed rezoning is for 2 single-family residential homes. There are 2 waivers being proposed here to allow the reduction of required BTL from 86.47 feet to 18.45 feet from the existing structure. Also, number 2, to park in front of the proposed principal structure. As we move along to the aerial image, you'll be able to see where the parcel is located. And I'll also show you where the proposed lot is located. If you look at the site here, you'll see the existing lot outlined here in red with the also proposed lot to the east of the existing lot. The existing lot has a square footage of 8,556 square feet. The structure on the lot existing is 2,000 square feet, which will remain. To the east, you also have a proposed lot. The proposed lot here is going to be 6,996 square feet, with a proposed structure, single-family residential one-story structure of 1,597 square feet. If you look at the site plan here provided, you'll see the existing lot and the existing structure. Also, you'll see the proposed lot, as my cursor outlines it, and the proposed one-story single-family structure. The lot is at the intersection of North 15th Street and East North Street. Access to the lot is all on East North Street. Front doors facing East North Street and vehicular access. As I went out to the site, you'll see the existing structure as is, single-family home. And you'll see where the proposed lot is. Another view of the site from East North Street. And they're also building a residential single-family home here directly to the south. To the north of the site, you'll see the intersection of East 15th and East North Street with residential single-family residing next door. To the northwest of the site, you'll see a church. And to the south of the site, you'll see all the way down, you have residential single-family up and down the street. Development Review and Compliance staff has reviewed the application and finds the request consistent with the City of Tampa Land Development Code. Should it be the pleasure of City Council to approve the application, further modifications must be made to the site plan between first and second reading, as the revision sheet states. Thank you. I'm here for any questions if needed.
Any questions for staff? All right, we'll hear from the applicant. You'll be sworn in.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, City Council members and staff. Thanks for taking the time to review my application. We're looking to increase housing inventory on this site, create some quality infill development by making use of existing space on the irregular shaped parcel. We found a way to plan a development that fits with the scale of the lot, and that's also consistent with the craftsman architectural choices of the surrounding neighborhood. We've accounted for parking, setbacks, natural resources, the design, and we hope you decide our site plan as being conforming and in the path of progress. Thank you.
All right, any questions for the applicant? All right. Anybody on the second floor to speak on this project?
Eileen Rosario, Development and Coordination. There's no one here to speak on this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Eileen. Anyone to register, Madam Deputy Clerk?
No one else is registered for this item.
We close?
Second.
Mr. Scalco's motion, Mr. Miranda seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted. Mr. Carlson, can you do the honors for number 6?
Yes, sir. I'd like to move item number 6, REZ, file number REZ 2180. This 2180 ordinance being presented for first reading consideration, ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 6309 North 15th Street in the city of Tampa, Florida, more particularly described in section 1 from zoning district classification SHRS, Seminole Heights residential single family to SHPD, Seminole Heights Plan Development residential single family detached, providing an effective date. And just with the finding that it's consistent with the land use plan for to use the land for residential purposes to accommodate projected population, and the density proposed by the development does not exceed the density as compared to the surrounding neighborhood, and the site plan promotes or encourages development that is appropriate in location, character, and compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood.
Dingfelder, Carlson,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Here.
is that a yes?
Yes.
Vieira, Citro,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
and Goode. Motion carried unanimously with Dingfelder being absent. Second reading and adoption will be held on December 2nd, 2021 at 9:30 a.m.
Thank you.
Item number 9.
Good evening, Council. Ryan Manassi with Development Coordination. Item number 9 is file number AB 2103. I'll pass it over to Susan Johnson Velez to intro this case. This was a mediated Ludra case for an alcoholic beverage sales. And then if you could return to me so I could finish my presentation.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Ryan. Good evening, Council. Susan Johnson Velez, Senior Assistant City Attorney. Council members, this item is before you this evening based upon a request for relief filed by the property owner pursuant to Section 70.51 Florida statutes, otherwise known as the Florida Land Use and Environmental Dispute Resolution Act. At your February 25th, 2021 meeting, City Council denied alcoholic beverage special use permit application number AB 21-03 for the property located at 236 North Dale Mabry Highway, which application had requested an alcoholic beverage special use permit for a small venue, beer, wine, and liquor for package sales off-premises consumption only. The request for relief was filed with the city on April 5th, 2021, and in the request, Big Town Liquors, the applicant for the AB permit, asserted that the city's denial was unreasonable and unfairly burdened the use of the property. The request for relief is an administrative proceeding which involves a two-step process. The first step requires the special magistrate conduct an informal mediation during which the city and the owner consider alternative developments responsive to council's decision to deny the application. In this case, the special magistrate conducted 2 informal mediation sessions, the first being held on June 29th, 2021, and the second on July 27th, 2021. At the first mediation, the applicant proposed additional buffering along the western property boundary and driveway modifications to minimize the potential intrusion of traffic into the residential area to the west of the subject property. Following this mediation hearing, the city staff met with the applicant and city staff, including the mobility department staff, reviewed the proposed driveway modifications and confirmed that they would discourage the left turn movement onto Fig Street from the site. When we reconvened the second mediation hearing in July, the applicant confirmed the meeting with the mobility department and presented their feedback. And that information helped to result in the settlement proposal that is before you this evening. Tonight's hearing is part of step 1 of the administrative process and requires City Council to consider the modifications as a proposed settlement and as depicted on the revised site plan. However, the revised site plan must also meet all the city's land development regulations and comprehensive plan requirements. If City Council rejects the mediated resolution, the process would return to the special magistrate for a separate hearing to consider the facts and circumstances set forth in the request for relief and any other relevant information to determine whether City Council's February denial of the application was unreasonable or unfairly burdened the property. During the final mediation session, members of the public who elected to participate were able to give their comments on the proposed settlement. At the conclusion of the mediation session, City, the applicant, and the special magistrate felt that enough progress had been made, and we agreed to cooperate in finalizing the site plan that is before you this evening. The applicant filed the revised site plan on August 12th, including proposed conditions of approval. The special magistrate issued his report and recommendation dated August 3rd, 2021, and recommended that City Council favorably consider this proposal. So the site plan before you this evening for what we'll refer to as the redesign project is the same as the one considered by City Council on February 25th, 2021, but it does include 3 new conditions that are proposed for your consideration this evening. Hours of operation would be Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., Friday and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 a.m., and then Sunday, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. In addition, a 6-foot tall solid white PVC fence with a continuous hedge would be constructed and maintained as depicted on the plans attached in Exhibit A, as Exhibit A. The space between the existing concrete wall on the property line and the new 6-foot tall white PVC fence would be secured along West Fig Street by a locked 6-foot gate. And then finally, in order to minimize the potential intrusion of traffic into the residential area to the west, the driveway along West Fig Street would be modified to include modifications to the driveway radius, a raised concrete traffic separator, and no left turn signs as depicted on the plans attached as Exhibit B. If the revised site plan is approved this evening, I would ask that the proposed conditions be added between first and second reading. So tonight, staff will make a presentation to you on the project, including the changes that are being proposed as part of the mediation. The supplemental staff report prepared by the city has been updated to reflect the changes proposed in the revised site plan. The applicant will also make a presentation to you and can provide greater detail on the 3 new conditions that I've briefly outlined for you. And so, council, in a regular ABU special use hearing, you would normally just be considering whether the application has met the general standards and special criteria for special use permits for a small venue. But in this case, council should also consider that this is a mediation settlement. Filing of a request for relief under this statute does toll the time that an applicant has to seek judicial review of your February 25th decision. So the potential for litigation is still possible for the denial, and council should also take that into consideration in evaluating this settlement and the special use permit. So council has 3 options this evening. If after hearing all of the evidence and testimony, council feels the applicant has now demonstrated by competent substantial evidence that this project meets the city regulations and is consistent with the comprehensive plan, and after taking into consideration the other relevant matters such as the avoidance of potential litigation, council may accept the special magistrate's recommendation and proceed to implement the recommendation. And in this case, that would mean approving this project on first reading, and a second reading and full public hearing would still be required. City council feels the applicant has still failed to meet its burden, and after taking into consideration the other relevant matters and the potential for litigation, then council may reject the settlement after identifying those sections of the code or the comprehensive plan that are not met. And finally, city council can modify the recommendation if the property owner agrees to those modifications and proceed to implement the modified recommendation. I will let you know as well that Danny Jorgensen with the Mobility Department staff is available this evening should you have any questions for mobility staff. And with that, I'll answer any questions that council might have. If not, I will turn it over to Mr. Manassi.
Any questions, Mrs. Susan Johnson Velez?
Mr. Chair, please.
You're recognized.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson Velez, is there a definition to small venue?
There is, and I will defer to Mr. Manassi for that. I'm sure he has the code.
Thank you. Mr. Manassi, is there a definition to small venue? And if so, does it go by square footage?
Yes, sir, there is a definition for, Ryan Manassi, Development Coordination. To answer your question, sir, yes, there is a definition stated in Chapter 2740 or Section 2743, and I'll just read it for the record since I have my computer right here. Just give me 1 second, but it's not an allotment of square footage. So an alcoholic beverage sales for a small venue as defined in our code, a commercial establishment with less than 300 person occupancy, which sells alcoholic beverages. So to answer your question, sir, there is no square foot defined in our code for small venue. It's defined by occupancy.
It is defined by occupancy. Do you know what the occupancy of this structure is that is being requested tonight?
That would be done through permitting once it would be reviewed for the use. The reason for that, sir, and if I can answer that to further clarify, the reason sometimes you see occupancy come forward with alcohol is because it pertains to the required parking. Certain types of establishments per our code in 27283.7 require a floor plan to building life safety code, those being restaurants, bars, lounges, those type of establishments. Whereas this establishment is a retail sales, the parking's based off of the square footage, which is typically like 4 per 1,000 square feet.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Manassi. Ms. Johnson Velez, this has been such a while ago, this is the first time we heard this. Was there anything else that this council rejected it for besides site plan and the left turn into residential area? Was there any other circumstances in which we rejected?
Well, council specifically in their motion indicated that your belief that the applicant had not met its burden to show that it satisfied the criteria in the code for this type of special use permit, and also had failed to justify the waiver. So this is brought before you this evening to address the waiver issue with the proximity to residential, and also to address council's comments and their concerns over possible intrusion into the adjacent residential street.
Thank you for jarring my memory. I can now remember that there was something more than just the site plan and the entrance and exit to the establishment. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any more questions, Ms. Susan Johnson-Velez? Back to Mr. Manasseh.
Thank you, Chair. Ryan Manasseh, Development Coordination. If I could share my screen, please. All right, if you'd let me know when you see my PowerPoint.
All right, you gotta blow it up for us. There it is, we got it.
Excellent. So the case before you again is, and you've heard some of this, but it'll be reiterated in my report, AB 22103, the applicant being Big Town Liquors, and the representative for tonight's hearing for the applicant is Mark Bentley. This property is located at 236 North Dale Mabry Highway. And I did add the background slide, which Susan Johnson-Velez did go over, the 3 changes to the site plan that staff has reviewed through this FLUJA process. To just briefly paraphrase it, this was, as Susan stated, denied on February 25th, 2021. The proposed special use being that small venue with beer, wine, liquor for package sales off premises consumption only. Through this proceeding, staff did review a mediated or revised site plan through this process. And again, to state those changes that the applicant has proposed and staff has accepted to bring back to you, were the hours of operation being stated on the site plan as being Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., Friday and Saturday, excuse me, Friday and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 a.m., and Sunday, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. The second stipulation being the applicant will add that 6-foot tall solid white PVC fence with a continuous hedge, and it shall be constructed and maintained as depicted on the site plan. And I'll show you that visually here in a moment. The space between the existing concrete wall and this new PVC fence would be gated and secured and maintained by the owner of the property. And then also to minimize the intrusion going westward outside of the subject site, it was going to have that raised, I guess we call it a pork chop, but I know Danny's on here and she might have the more technical term, but it's, I'll show you visually too. It's to encourage the ride out only with the raised concrete barrier. So I just wanted to put that slide up so you could visually see what those 3 corrections to the site plan being presented to you tonight are. Again, this is for the small venue, beer, wine, and liquor package sales for off-premises consumption only. It's a total area of 9,932 square feet, and that's indoor only. The parking required is 40 spaces, and they have 43 spaces. And again, the listed sales on this revised mediated site plan is Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., Friday and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 a.m., and Sunday, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. There is one waiver that will still be attached to this request, and it comes from section 27132. It is in the West Shore Business Center, and it requires a distance separation of 250 feet from residential uses. The closest residential use is the 138 feet, and that's located at 3807 North B Street. It's zoned RS50, and again, that's 138 feet away. And just to clarify, I put the code section with a distance separation above that. This is in the West Shore Business Center. Heart route, I do have on here the bus runs along the subject site of North Dale Mabry, Heart Route 36. And here's a zoomed out version of the revised mediated site plan. Just to clarify, they have made the corrections that we've discussed in our FLUJA process. And I have a zoom in so I could visually show you more. But just to briefly go over the raised traffic concrete barrier here, or pork chop, would be right here, and it'd expedite the exit to the right as you would see it from the subject site onto Dale Mabry Highway. And then that enhanced west buffer would be along this west side. And just so before I leave this slide, I just wanted to say that they do have the hours listed now as what is being proposed, and I stated before. So this might be easier to see. Here is the raised concrete traffic separator. The previous plan that was before you just used the existing drive aisle that was there. This subject site was the Rooms to Go Kids. So the overall building area is not changing. The parking lot wasn't changed. That was previously shown to you. So this is an enhancement from what was previously an established use, but through this Fluidra process, they're presenting you with these 3 additions: the hours of operation, the traffic separator, and then on this west side is the existing concrete wall that's already there. And then as you can see, this arrow depicts the proposed 6-foot-tall PVC fence that would run additionally, and then that continuous hedge that would be in front of that. The aerial, as you can see, there are residential uses to your west, and if you're at the corner of this property, to the northwest as well. And I believe this establishment right here is a daycare. Immediately also to your north, you have the Yummy House, which is in the OP1 zoning district. And as you can see, Del Mabry, you have CG uses along with PD uses. I believe that's the Wawa to the top there at the intersection of Gray and Del Mabry, and other restaurant and commercial establishments that abut Del Mabry both on the west and east. Here's the photo of the subject site. And as I said, it was the Rooms to Go Kids. Obviously that sign's been taken down now. Another visual of the front of this existing building. The picture to your left depicts south on North Del Mabry Highway, and the picture on the right depicts north on Del Mabry Highway, and just showing you that part of the neighbors is that Yummy House restaurant to the north. And then the picture to the left depicts the parking area of the restaurant. And then, like I said there, I believe this is a daycare use here. That would be next door along Fig, and then proceeding into the residential neighborhood. The picture on the right is directly across the street, and as you can see, it's an Advent Health Care Center. And then the picture on the left, again, is more of a close-up, which would be, you'd be standing more towards the northwest corner of the existing parking lot, the picture to the right, and that's across the street on the north-hand side. The picture to the right, the house that you see behind this existing concrete fence is 3810 West Fig Street. And the closest residential, it's hard to point out with all the trees and such, but it'd be right over here. If you can see my cursor, almost lined up to that ADA space sign, but that would be the 138 feet. So actually this residential is a little bit farther than the closest residential. With that being said, and the modifications that we reviewed through this process, Development Review and Compliance staff has reviewed the application. We find it consistent with the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances. Staff is available for any questions should you have them.
Any questions, Mr. Manasseh? All right, we'll go to the applicant.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of council. My name is Mark Bentley, 401 East Jackson Street, Tampa, 33602.
All right, Mr. Bentley, all right. Been sworn in, sir?
Yes, sir, I have. Thank
right.
you for asking. We appreciate the city's efforts in going through this process. It was a tedious process, and we believe it came out with some proposed mitigation that addressed the questions and concerns that the council raised at its February 25th hearing where it denied the petition. So as you just saw, as a result of a proposed mitigation, the staff has issued a recommendation or finding of consistency. The significance of that is that staff finds it consistent with not only the general standards, but also the special standards. The only special standard that relates to this special use is the separation, distance separation from residentially zoned property, which is 250 feet. We're unfortunately 138 feet away from the closest residential property. So that, I guess you could say that's the only hiccup in this entire development. We're simply going from the sale of furniture to package sale of alcohol. The prior recommendation was for inconsistency, which you can see on the Elmo, which resulted in denial. I want to mention to council that We also had a letter in support, and hopefully you got a copy of that. I gave that to Mr. Shelby before the hearing. For Mr. Jim Mosbaugh, Jim sent the letter individually, but he's also the president of the Bon Air Neighborhood Association, and they're in support. Also like to note that when this process started, there were 34 notices sent out to property owners as required by code, along with notices to 4 civic associations. At the conclusion of the process, 3 of the neighbors participated in the mediation, and we also received a letter in support. One of the residents who's participated in the mediation, his name is Mr. Toy Pelez, and Mr. Pelez lives a block or so away from the subject property, and the travel distance is several hundred feet, so it'd be kind of difficult to see how he'd be impacted, but in any event, that relates to participation. I want to address the daycare. There was some confusion at the prior hearing concerning the significance of a daycare adjacent to the sale of alcohol. As Mr. Manassi indicated, because the subject property is located in the West Shore Business Overlay or Business District, that it's not subject to distance separation requirements for institutional uses such as schools and daycares. So under the city's code, there's not a presumption, but an assumption that they are compatible, the sale of alcohol and daycare. Also, under child care licensing law, the daycare is required to be secured and also prohibits children from leaving the premises without adult supervision. And licensing indicates that that establishment closes at 6. Therefore, there's no waiver request needed for the daycare, and I just wanted to clarify that before we got any deeper into this. At the last hearing, there was a suggestion that the proposed special use permit was not in compliance with the comprehensive plan. Specifically, policy land use 9.3.6 indicates that establishments licensed to sell alcohol may have potentially deleterious effects on neighborhoods. The policy goes on to say that regarding petitioners requesting waivers of minimum distance requirements that, quote, the city shall explore and adopt methods to provide mitigation. So that's simply what the policy says, is that the city council shall come up with some, I guess, some standards or criteria to evaluate a distance waiver for residentially zoned property, from residentially zoned property. So we are not in violation, we wouldn't be in violation of this policy that was bannered around at the prior hearing. So to the contrary, actually what we're doing today might set a standard for city council to consider in terms of mitigation requirements when they do consider a residential waiver. I'd like to talk a little bit about the client. This is Lucan's Liquor. It's a family-owned business. It's been owned and operated with strong roots in the community. Here are a couple photographs I have for you. This one is in Clearwater, one of their most recent stores. And this one is in Dunedin on Main Street. And when you look at these, you think you're looking at more like an Office Depot, not a traditional liquor store, as I think a lot of people perceive it. Also, with respect to, there was a concern raised about people drinking in the parking lot. That's against the law. That's a misdemeanor. I've got 2 code sections for you right here, section 14-150.1.6, 5 and 6, I believe. They prohibit drinking within 500 feet. So that is not an issue. I'd like to talk a little bit about the CG zoning. Under the existing zoning, there are a variety of uses that would be allowed, permitted as of right. For example, medical marijuana, microbrewery, bank, kennel, vehicle repair, restaurant, clinic, retail sales, etc. For example, a Denny's could go in there and operate 24/7 with its dumpsters adjacent to the neighbors without any mitigation whatsoever. So our compromise provides an excellent opportunity to control activities with limited hours of operation, traffic diversion techniques, and enhanced buffering versus any use that would be allowed under CG zoning. It's also interesting that, and I have listed some of the uses here, that from a traffic trip generation standpoint, and this is an ITE, trip generation standards, which the city uses, you can see that a liquor store is one of the lower generators amongst some of these uses, restaurant, things like that. And the highest generator would be medical marijuana, which is about double. So we believe that from a trip generation standpoint, a traffic impact, it's one of the lesser impact uses that would impact transportation on the adjacent network. Also, along with the limited hours of operation, that would further reduce traffic in the area. I'd like to talk a little bit about the site plan, which Ryan went over. It's obviously impossible to find a solution to address the inherent conflict where commercial zoning abuts residential, which is the situation, as council knows, on Kennedy Boulevard, Dale Mabry, like our situation, Gandy, and some others. However, our client's proposal is providing mitigation to the extent reasonably possible and greater than many petitions that have received more extensive waivers than our proposal. Our client's proposal is set forth on the site plan. I don't need to go over it. You've already heard it, I think, 3 or 4 times. But obviously, early closure will result in a loss of revenue for our client, especially you can imagine a liquor store during the holiday season like Thanksgiving and Christmas. However, the client wants to compromise and felt it important to take into consideration the neighbors' use and enjoyment of their properties. And it's also important for the client that their employees get home early and safely. I'd like to talk about traffic impacts. As I mentioned, the proposed use is a low traffic generator. There was concern expressed by residents about traffic going westbound into the neighborhood. And I think this is an important point, is that council should recognize that the concern is not unique to a liquor store, but would relate to any use at the property, whether it's a bank, restaurant, medical marijuana, dispensary, and the like. So alcohol has absolutely nothing to do with traffic direction. And again, the city law prohibits consumption of alcohol within 500 feet. Our client retained a traffic engineer, Michael Yates, who, working with staff, came up with a proposal that the city approved that will reduce the potential for traffic leaving the site and going westbound, which would be done with a driveway redesign, signage, and raised traffic diverter. Mr. Chairman, may I have Mr. Yates speak for a minute?
Yes, sir.
On that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Mike?
Good evening, Michael Yates with Palm Traffic, and I have been sworn. I just want to go over in a little more detail with what Mr. Bentley had talked about. I'm first going to go through the traffic separator in the proposed plan here. I'm going to turn it so it's facing north. But what we've done is a raised concrete traffic separator here. This will be a mountable curb, so it's not going to be that F-type curb where you'll do damage to your car if you hit it, but the average car will struggle to go over it. And what this will do is allow for a truck to safely make that maneuver. And then what we've also done is widened out this radius here. Here is Dale Mabry, so we are just about 100 feet west of Dale Mabry, so we are as close to Dale Mabry as we could be with our driveway. The residential parcels don't start till the back side of the parcel, so we've moved it all the way to the east as far as we can. And so what this does is this directs people out onto Fig and towards Dale Mabry. And we will have it signed with a no left turn sign as well as that raised concrete separator. We've also proposed to reduce this inbound radius to discourage people from using Fig to come into the site. The sharper radius will make it difficult to make this maneuver, and so that will help discourage traffic from using that. Again, as Mark described, the proposed use is one of the lower trip generators of all the allowed uses that could go in there. And so the distribution would not change with each of these uses. So they would all have the same retail characteristics to go west. And so by being the lower trip generator and by proposing to modify the median within the driveway to force people to go to the east to Dale Mabry rather than into the neighborhood, this is the best case scenario for the site. We also did traffic counts. We did 7-day machine counts on Fig, as well as peak hour AM and PM, turning movement counts at Dale Mabry and Fig. And the road operates at a level service C, which is the best actually that is within the DOT capacity tables. That's all I have unless you have any questions, and I'll let Mr. Bentley finish up.
Mr. Central, you
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Can you put up that site map one more time, please, and thank you. Thank you, sir. Where is the trash going to be located at, the trash receptor?
I'm the traffic person, but it's going to be right here. It is where it is today.
All right, then the delivery trucks, how are they going to enter this parking lot?
They will come in from Dale Mabry. They will make the left in, and then they will make the left out. This curb is designed to be mountable so the trucks can get in there. We've run turn templates on it to make sure that that will function correctly. They do not use the large WB67s. Most of their deliveries are via box truck.
You answered my question. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mike. Okay. Next issue is the buffering. I think Ryan covered that, but what I've got on the Elmo here is you can see the row of vegetation. This would be very thick, and within 2 years would be at a height of 6 to 8 feet. There's a separation between the vegetation and fence and the wall, and as I think Susan indicated, there's a depression there. If we put the fence on our property line, the 6-foot fence would effectively only be a 4-foot fence. So we're going to have this area secured here and locked. The next issue is the general criteria. Staff has determined in its recommendation that we met the general criteria. I can go through all those one by one, and maybe I'll save that for rebuttal because like I said, we've already kind of gone over that, and staff's determined there's compliance. But I can handle it that way. Now, with respect to the special standards, the only special standard, as I mentioned, that pertains to the special use is the distance separation that relates to residentially zoned property. That's under 27-132. And per the staff report is that there was a finding of consistency in light of the fact that we provided mitigation that kind of overcame the lack of 112 feet. So that's what we're short of, 112 feet. So the separation would be 138 feet to the closest residential property. So that's our proposal, which we believe strikes a fair balance between all competing interests and provides substantially more certainty and reassurance to the residents and to City Council than would any CG permitted use that must simply adhere to the minimum codes. Also, our proposal based on research provides greater mitigation and protection than other similar ABs that have been recipients of waivers from City Council, in our opinion. And finally, 27-132 in the staff report on page 5, it's part of your code, states that a waiver shall be granted if it is found that after the mitigation for the waiver, the general standards are met, which we believe is the situation here. If you have any questions, I'll certainly attempt to answer those. But here again, on terms of the general standards, if you wanted, if it was client's desire for me to go through each one, I could obviously do that, and staff has already done that. So that's where we stand.
All right, Mr. Bentley. Any questions, Mr. Bentley? All right. Anyone speak on this item on the second floor?
Thank you.
Good evening, City Council members. We have 7 more people already signed up, and they've already been sworn in. I'll bring them in now.
Okay. Miss Eileen?
Yes, sir.
Let's take a 5-minute recess.
Okay, thank you.
Born on the bad side. I've been down since I began to crawl. crawl. If it wasn't for bad luck, people, oh, I wouldn't have no luck at all. Yeah, look here. of mercy. You don't need no golden ring. The way you came to my rescue, heaven must be watching over me. And now when the shadows falling and day turns into night, I hear my angel calling. I can't wait to see the light, angel of mercy. You don't need no golden wing. The way you came down to my rescue, heaven must be watching over me. Now, sometimes I feel a fever coming over me. I just hold my angel's hand and she puts me right back on my feet. Angel of mercy, you don't need no golden wing. Baby, the way you came to my rescue, heaven must be watching over me. Spy with me, baby, coming down from the sky. But you like a good little angel, and take me to paradise. Angel of mercy, yeah. You don't need no golden wing. The way you came to my rescue, and heaven must be watching over.
Maniscalco. Here. Dingfelder. Citro.
Here.
Vieira. Miranda.
Here.
And Goods.
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
All right. Getting to our second round of, and I think we have 7 speakers, Ms. Rosario told us, so.
Yes.
All right, everyone been sworn in already?
Yes,
All
everyone has
right.
been sworn in.
Yes, ma'am. All right. You can begin when ready.
Okay. I'm Pamela Jo Hatley, 14517 North 18th Street, Tampa, Florida. I'm displaying an aerial here on the overhead, and I just want to make sure council can see that. I represent Michael Pelaez. Mr. Pelaez has, since 1988, owned and operated a child care center at 3809 West Fig. And he resides at 3810 West Gray. On the aerial, this is the subject property. The child care center is here, and Mr. Pelaez resides right here. Mr. Pelaez and several of his family members have owned homes and lived on this block of Fig for many, many decades. Mr. Pelaez's son owns this property and lives right here adjacent to the subject property. This property Mr. Pelaez's son owns is about 185 feet from what will be the licensed AB area. And the child care property is about 150 feet from the proposed license area. We don't believe that the proposed site plan changes will protect the Pelias' childcare business or his neighborhood from the constant inflow and outflow of vehicle and pedestrian traffic that this busy liquor store will bring. It won't stop people from coming in from the west, for example. The comprehensive plan, of course, that Land Use Policy 9.3.6 does recognize that establishments licensed to sell alcoholic beverages may have potentially deleterious effects on neighborhoods. And the zoning code requires special use applicants to meet general standards that include demonstrating that the use will protect the public, or will ensure the public health, safety, and general welfare if located where proposed, and is compatible with contiguous and surrounding properties. The zoning code does authorize City Council to grant a waiver from the distance requirement only if the application after granting the waiver is consistent with the applicable general standards. Well, here, because of the scale and intensity of the proposed liquor store, 10,000 square feet of discount liquor sales, this doesn't meet the general standards of ensuring the public health, safety, and welfare, or being compatible with the contiguous surrounding properties. To the contrary, this large discount liquor store will have a disruptive and intrusive impact on surrounding properties, and no amount of buffering or screening or site plan design will cure the adverse impacts that it will bring to this, well, to the childcare business, but to the neighborhood generally. So we urge City Council to deny the special use request.
Ms. Hatley,
Yes.
the
Yes,
clients
sir.
that you represent, do they live in the North Bon Air neighborhood?
I do not know if it's the North Bon Air subdivision or not. Yes, okay, they've just confirmed it is. It is the North
do.
Bon Air subdivision area, yes.
Okay, I was just wondering, I received a memorandum here from the Bon Air President Association about this case we're on in support of it with the new recommendations, but were your clients a part of this?
No, sir, they were not, and I believe that's a civic association. I don't
Okay.
think it's a traditional homeowners association, so I think it's a voluntary association. And I did read that letter, and it actually states that that person is aware that there are neighbors who are in opposition to this special use, and that he was speaking strictly for himself as president of that civic association, but for himself.
Okay, well, maybe I misread the way the 2 pages are, but okay, I just wanted to find out if your clients were in that neighborhood association. All right, thank you.
They're in that area, yes, sir, but not part of that association, no, sir.
Are they part of any association in that area?
Well, again, that's a voluntary organization, and they are not members of it.
I'm just saying of any. Is there any other association, you know, versus a civic group, association, crime watch group?
I do not know, but I'm sure they could answer that question. They're here to speak.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Next speaker.
Hello. First, I want to tell you my name, Alice Pasquarelli. My address is 3815 Fig Street. I am the owner, and I have been sworn in.
Thank you.
Hi. Fourth time up here, guys. I'm still not... I wrote down a few points, and I just want to say what I have to say. The association person, first of all, that isn't in anything. I've been in this neighborhood for 65 years. It's basically a bunch of people that get on the internet and talk about things going on, but it's not an HOA or any type of community activity. Okay. If this proposal goes through and they say it meets all the mandatory requirements, I don't believe it does. First of all, do the right thing. There's a daycare across the street. I don't care how you spell that law, that's just, it's not right. Second of all, I believe this business came in and bought this property, and it is a good location, but they didn't do their homework. I don't think that they thought that the neighborhood would care whether or not a liquor store was there. But we do. I've been there 65 years. I'll be 65 next month anyway. But I live at 3815 Fig, which is right here. So this means every morning I'm going to wake up, come out my door, see that sign. I don't care what you tell me. I see traffic every day. That is my neighborhood. I live there. I know what's going to happen. You can tell me your traffic studies, the pork chop deal they're talking about. They did it across the street. It's all crumbled now. People run over it. They ignore it. They ignore the sign. The sign is there too. What makes them think that their patrons are not going to do the same thing that these patrons do? And they come across the parking lot. Next thing, I mean, this is going to change my life forever. It's going to, my property values go down. I have to watch this. The traffic, just backing in and out of my driveway will be an issue. I want to talk about the holidays. Nobody's even mentioned those. It's just going to get crazy. The liquor stores get busy at the holidays, and they do. Lastly, I want to talk about, we did collect petitions for people that couldn't be here today. People have to work. I've had to miss work 4 different times. Come down here, sit for 2 hours. Try not to cry when I'm up here because I take it very personally, because you're affecting me personally. You're affecting my neighborhood. But we had over 25 petitions signed of people that couldn't be here that are opposed to this. So I'm not sure who the association, counting as one person, we've got signed papers and have submitted them.
Thank you, Mel.
Thank you. At least I didn't cry this time.
You state your name, sir?
Good evening, City Council. My name is Michael Pelias II. I reside at 3810 West Fig Street. It's the residence directly next door to the proposed liquor store. I don't want to rehash everything that has been said, but obviously I'm 185 feet approximately from the proposed liquor store. That's going to directly affect my property in the street. The pork chop, they're going to travel from the west. It's going to disrupt the street. And all that's been said, but what's more personal to me is I want to build a new house. And I'm highly confident that I do not want to live next to a liquor store. And I don't want to reinvest my money and my family and my time next to a liquor store. My father was raised in that neighborhood. I was raised, and I raised my 3 children. And I'm very fortunate to have the family and neighborhood and community that I've been a part of. So I thank you in advance for all of your considerations, and have a good evening.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
Hello.
Yeah, you state your name for us, sir. I believe you already been sworn.
It's Michael Pelias, 3809 West Fig Street, Tampa, Florida. I own the daycare that's across the street from the proposed liquor store. My concern is you can go outside the house at 7, 8 o'clock at night, and it's completely quiet. Don't hear anything. Once in a while I see a car go by or something like that. Del Mabry, you can't even hardly hear Del Mabry. And I'm afraid when they put the liquor store there, they're going to have hours all the way up to midnight. Traffic in and out, in and out. And they won't, like they said, they won't make a right turn onto Del Mabry. They want to go left, go around the block to wherever the light is to get across Del Mabry. And the only thing I can say is that the people of the neighborhood there, we're really nobody, if you want to think of it that way, that we don't have attorneys that are high-class attorneys, and we don't have the money or the influence and stuff like that to fight something like this. The only one we have to fight for this is you guys, the city council. And it's y'all's responsibility to help the neighborhood that we live in and not to let people come and intrude and change the dynamics of the neighborhood where it's just almost unbearable to live on certain times of the year, especially through the holidays and stuff, because of the multi-traffic and stuff in the liquor store. And everybody that comes from, that don't want to go to Wine and More down the street, they're going to come to this guy here, and the traffic is just going to be terrible, and you can't go out, like I said, you go out at 8 o'clock at night, you're going to hear traffic, people coming in and out, horns honking, and it's just going to be a mess. And I appreciate y'all listening, and please look out for us guys, because you're the only one that can help us. And I thank you for listening, and goodbye.
Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Councilman, this lady, Luz Paez, is donating her time to Toy Pilots.
Okay.
Oh, you need this?
Yeah, I need
I need this.
That's a total, Mr. Thank you, respective council members. I
Mr.
appreciate
Shelby?
the time. My name is Toy
One second,
Pelaez.
sir. 1 second, sir. Mr. Shelby?
Just so that we're clear that, that by giving up the 3 minutes, the gentleman gets an additional minute for a total of 4.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Time
Yes,
start.
sir.
My name's Toy Pelaez. I live at 3814 West Gray Street. As I was acknowledged that I live on Gray Street, this does not directly impact me, and it does. The pork chop that they're talking about, as far as directing traffic, does not deter any traffic going down Fifth Street West to Church, onto Gray Street to catch the light. The traffic studies that they had did not include Midtown. Midtown is open now. Midtown is causing more traffic now. We're suffering from the traffic nightmare. And you, as city council members, are struggling with this too, I believe. It's a problem. Our biggest concern is the traffic going down Fig Street to Church to Gray. That's the way it's gonna happen. Anybody goes down Fig to turn left on the Dale Mabry, it's gonna get in a wreck. If not, they're gonna have to take a right, go to North B, come back to Church, back to Gray, back to Dale Mabry again, and wait for the light. And I live on that street. When traffic is bad, I'm held hostage. I have to beg people to let me out of my driveway. And I live on Gray Street. It's a traffic light. I understand that. But when traffic snarls, I have to beg people to get out of my traffic, out of my driveway. My sister lives on Fig, and they race up and down the streets there, turning on Fig to beat the light to go up to Kennedy. It's a problem. I'm sure these traffic studies that they have, they're estimates. True? Nah, it doesn't happen that way. As far as the traffic goes, too many accidents. They just had accidents there about 2 weeks ago. A pretty bad one. They also we have crime from vagrants, and I'm not sure who, but my neighbor across the street was just broken into, and they went over the back fence. My house, 2 years ago, I caught somebody going over my back fence. I mean, I got a 6-foot high fence, and they caught them, and I had them arrested. And they're coming from Dale Mabry. They're somehow or another, they were living, I guess, where this piece of property is now, where the dumpster's at. They were setting up shop there. Now they want to put a buffering zone with a 6-foot fence all the way around that nobody can see. They're going to stash their stuff behind there, and it's become a homeless village. I care about the homeless. I believe they need to have help, but at the same time, we're providing them places where they hide, and they don't want to be helped. I want to help people. And the only way you're going to help them is get the help they need. Putting an alcoholic place here, Wawa's already has a problem with them serving alcohol to them. Now we have a liquor store that's going to be serving more alcohol to them. We need the litigation as far as the threat of litigation as far as if you deny this. I don't believe that will happen. This gentleman says, and I believe it was Mr. Bentley who was the one that said this in the meetings that we had, that I attended both of those, that they didn't need this property to be zoned in order to be profitable. So if that is the case, then why are we here? My biggest concern now is...
Thank you, sir.
Is that it?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I appreciate it very much, and thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Chair, if I may?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I pulled Mr. Shelby outside for a reason. I wanted to disclose, just out of an abundance of caution, that I had a communication with Mr. Peliz. I think it was the other, I think his first name's Mark, as I recall. And just for the public, that in quasi-judicial matters, whenever you have communications with members of the public regarding said quasi-judicial matters, you have a duty to disclose them. Therefore, I'm doing that. I believe, for the record, that was probably, we're in what, late October, 7-8 months ago at Mission Barbecue off Bruce B. Downs. Just for the record, I wanted to disclose that to the public.
And the subject of the communication was?
Something to the effect of, glad you guys did that. I to the best of my recollection, I said, yeah, sure, you betcha.
And after disclosing that, are you then still able to be fair and impartial?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
How many more, Ms. Eileen?
There is no one else to speak on behalf of this item.
We have anyone registered?
Good night.
Good night, Ms. Eileen. All right. We have anybody registered to speak on this item, Madam Deputy Clerk?
We had one registered speaker, however, she appeared in person.
All right. Mr. Bentley's back.
Okay. Hey, once again, thanks for your time and patience, Council. I'll make this pretty brief. Just want to point out in terms of the hours, as I mentioned, that actually the neighbors had suggested limited hours of operation through the mediation process. Any kind of retail or restaurant, there's no limitation on hours, but here again, the clients agreed to close 5 days a week at 10 o'clock at night and 2 at midnight. With respect to Ms. Hadley's testimony, she said it was a discount liquor store. That's incorrect. The child care, here again, there's no separation requirement. The child care is listed right now by RE/MAX for redevelopment to build 2 or 3 homes. It's listed as an 8-bathroom, 3-bedroom, 3-bath home, and it promotes the property as being close to the major attraction known as Midtown, the walkable community. I'll just kind of leave it at that. Ms. Hatley's not qualified to address technical traffic issues or zoning issues. With respect to Bon Air, that's a recognized civic association. The city gave us that association, and we're required to notify them. The opponent's property lies within the geographic boundaries of Bon Air per the city. With respect to the general standards, one of them is use will ensure public health and safety if operated according to plan. Yes, will comply with all laws and proposed mitigation. The use complies with all regulations. It's number 2 is the use complies with all land use regulations. It's hard to hear back here. There's a lot of people talking kind of in my ear. The use is number 3. The use is
Mr. Bentley?
Yes, sir.
There are signs in that room that says, please be quiet. So hopefully people can adhere to the rules. You may continue, Mr. Bentley.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it. Number 3, the general standards, the use is compatible with contiguous and surrounding property. We answer in the affirmative. You've heard testimony and evidence to this effect, including your own professional planning staff's report, which indicates with the proposed mitigation that justifies the reduction in the separation requirement. Next, general standards, use conforms with the comp plan. Yes, otherwise they wouldn't have processed the application. The property zone CG, which allows retail sales of alcohol. In that policy I mentioned, I don't need to get too deep into that, but that policy about deleterious effects suggests that City Council should adopt standards to deal with these waivers, nothing more than nothing less. Number 5, the use will not establish precedent. Certainly this won't establish precedent. And under the city's zoning code, each AB petition is unique and stands on its own facts. Number 5, there should be considerations of ingress, off-street parking, refuse, lighting, utilities, drainage, et cetera. Here again, this is an existing project that was approved by the city. Everything's in place, all the utilities, et cetera. So it's been approved and it's been constructed. And number 7, the use should control any potential effects. We've done it through buffering, traffic diversion, and limitation on hours of operation. Once again, thank you very much for your time and cooperation. And I know it's getting late, and if you have any questions, I'll certainly attempt to answer them. Thanks.
Any questions, Mr. Bentley? All right. Mr. Maniscalco's moved to close. Second one, anyone? Second one, Mr. Carlson, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion granted. I think Mr. Citro, it's your turn at the
Mr. Chairman, if I can, just, it might be helpful to council to hear from Ms. Johnson-Velez, just to tell you again the options, just so that they're fresh in your mind, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Mr. Shelby. Again, Susan Johnson-Velez, Senior Assistant City Attorney. Council, as I explained earlier, you have 3 options this evening. You can, if you find, after you've heard all the evidence and testimony now, if you feel the applicant has now demonstrated by competent substantial evidence that the project and the application meets the city's regulations and is consistent with the comp plan, then you may accept the special magistrate's recommendation. You recall there is a report and recommendation from the special magistrate. He recommends that council favorably consider the site plan with the addition of the 3 new conditions that were resulted from the mediation. If council feels that the applicant has still failed to meet its burden, and after taking into consideration the other relevant matters such as avoidance of potential litigation, then council may reject the settlement and reject the special magistrate's recommendation. Or city council can modify the recommendation, and if the property owner is in agreement, then city council can proceed to implement the modified recommendation. So in this case, if you recall from prior FLUDRA hearings, we asked that council make 2 different motions. One, the first motion would be to take action on the special magistrate's recommendation to either accept, reject, or modify. If you vote, or if you choose to accept the application, then you would act upon the ordinance that's before you in order to implement the acceptance of that recommendation. And I'm happy to answer any questions on that procedure or process that you might have, and to walk you through it.
Is there a motion to accept or deny? Gentlemen, is there a motion to accept or deny the manager's recommendation?
Mr. Chairman, Martin
Direct-
Shelby, thank you. I believe the terms that Ms. Johnson-Velez used is to either accept or reject the recommendation of the magistrate's recommendation. Is that correct?
That is correct. They may accept it, reject it, or they may modify. If they would like to suggest some modifications to any of the 3 conditions, then they could ask the property owner if he is amenable to those.
Thank you.
All right, was there a motion to accept, reject, or modify?
Mr. Chairman, we are closed, aren't we? Motion to reopen, please. Second.
Okay, Mr. Citro, that's reopened. Mr. Vieira, second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion granted.
Mr. Bentley, are you still there?
Yes, sir.
Do you have a site plan up that you could put on the Elmo, please?
Guys, can you grab the site plan?
I don't see Mr. Bentley on the screen, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Bentley? Is he still on the second floor?
Yeah.
There we go.
All right, he's putting it up now. All right.
City Council, Ryan Manassi, Development Coordination. If you want to give me control, I can put it up on screen.
Okay, no, I think I can see it. Can you slide that up slightly, Mr. Bentley?
Yes, sir.
All right, so the way your site plan is, there would be no entrance or exit for Dale Mabry. The building takes up too much space for that to happen.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do about that. Pardon me? And Mr. Yates, our engineer, has just mentioned to me FDOT, he's discussed even the possibility, and they won't, it's too close to the intersection to relocate the driveway.
Thank you, Mr. Bentley.
You're welcome.
Any further questions from Mr. Bentley, since we're open? Maniscalco, move to close. Second by Mr. Miranda, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted. All right, gentlemen, the three options on the table to accept, reject, or modify.
Mr. Chair, I still have the problems with the entrance and exit onto Fig Street. We heard a small venue, but we also heard 300 people to be in there. We heard that they're adding 2 more parking spaces, I believe. That is still going to be a heck of a lot of traffic coming in and out of there.
If I may?
You're recognized, sir.
The issue is, can that be modified to address those concerns? And for that, we would probably have to reopen. I'm thinking, and I'm not moving, I'm just saying that, you know, if there is somebody that wants to modify this, I would think we would want to inquire on what the property owner would think about that.
Well, I think he's answered already. I think you can't modify the
I
vote
can-
because,
Can I clarify?
no, sir.
Move to reopen.
All right, Mr. Citro's moved to reopen. Mr. Carl second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried to reopen.
The issue? Mr. Bentley, did you wish to address something?
Oh, yes, I was just waiting for permission.
You're granted, Mr. Bentley.
Thank you. All we're doing right now is there's an existing driveway connection that was used for the Rooms to Go kids. Okay, and that's as far away from the neighborhood as you can have that access point. We're not adding additional access points to the project. The code requires 40 parking spaces, and we're exceeding that. We already have 43. We're not adding, nothing has changed on this property except the buffering and the modifications to the driveway to the extent we can encourage traffic to go right instead of to the left. And here again, not to beat a dead horse, as they say, whether this is a restaurant or a liquor store or a medical marijuana dispensary, if someone wants to go westbound and make that movement, it has really nothing to do with what you're selling at the property. You know, just because it's liquor, there's not going to be a higher volume. We've demonstrated with facts that actually it's a lower volume than most of the other uses that are allowed under CG. So, thanks.
Mr. Chair?
You recognize.
Mr. Bentley, are you saying that this is an apples to apples as far as traffic goes than what was there before with the Rooms to Go? Are you saying that the same amount of traffic flow that Rooms to Go had will stay consistent with this new business?
Under the ITE trip generation data, which they would be retail, right?
You keep basing that, and
No.
now you'll get me started on legalized.
No,
on
nothing.
marijuana, but I'm saying apples to apples on the furniture store as to this liquor store.
According to the Bible, which is this ITE, which your staff uses, in terms of trip generation, you wanted to know apples to apples. I'm not going to shoot from the hip. I want to give you the facts. It says the liquor store would generate daily 1,000 trips, and the Rooms to Go would generate 1,250.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Cicero, I see where you're going with that, I mean, it's more or less reality. And I understand you can have studies and you can have numbers, but sometimes they don't actually really mesh at times.
And my, thank you, Mr. Chair, my, I guess where I'm driving at is the rooms to go probably, I don't know, and I'm not gonna give evidence, was probably busier transportation-wise in the late afternoon, early evening. I'm seeing a different type of change in the business that's going to be located at the same spot to being later on into the evening. Now, thank you very much for changing your hours of operations. I thank you for that. Again, apples to apples, I foresee this as being different times of the evening, different times of the day that the traffic will be going through this neighborhood. Even though there is a pork chop there and they're redirecting, which I thank you for that design change also. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Different business model. Anyone else? We close for the third time, seconded by Mr. Vieira. All in favor?
You sure?
Opposed? All right. There are 3 exceptions to this rule. Either we can accept, reject, or modify. Anybody want to take a swing at the bat?
Well, Mr. Chair, I move that we reject.
All right, there's been a motion on the floor by Mr. Citro, second by Mr. Maniscalco.
And may I say something about this, if I may? Well, you know what? I'll say it after my vote. After my vote.
Roll call vote.
Carlson,
No.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Vieira,
No.
Citro,
Yes.
Miranda,
No.
Dingfelder, Goods.
Yes.
It's a tie, 3-3.
And may I say something, Mr. Chair?
I think at the point we have a tie, so we'll have to reconvene again to have a full body. Is that right, Mr. Shelby? No, sir. No.
We are referring to Rule 6H. If a motion in a quasi-judicial matter fails to receive at least 4 votes, the motion fails. And if another motion in order is not made, the public hearing shall be automatically reopened and continued to a time certain at the next regularly scheduled council meeting. So, right now, unless council has another motion on the floor, then the motion is failed, and that the public hearing shall be reopened and continued to a time certain. What is council's pleasure?
Move to reopen if there's no other motion.
Well, wait a minute, I'm gonna go with Mr. Shelby. I think we ought to have it, for 7 council members. I don't think this is gonna change. We may be opening 10 more times. It's gonna be 3-3. That's my take on it.
Reopen to continue
We'll
it.
reopen
Oh,
and
okay,
continue
yeah.
it to a date and time
Okay.
certain.
I second the motion.
Next
Right,
week.
Mr. Maniscalco has moved it, Mr. Miranda has seconded, roll call.
Well, what?
I'm sorry.
Well,
Don't need a roll call for that. To open. The real.
So it's a
All
motion
right.
to, you can do to motion reopen, and then set it now, you might as well do it all as one motion, to pick a date. Obviously, the next regular scheduled meeting is next week, November 4th, and my suggestion, council, is you could take it up at 10:30 a.m. You haven't changed your order of business yet, so it's council's pleasure when they want to take it up. You have 7 ordinances on second reading. Actually, no, you have 9 ordinances on second reading. You have a decision of the Architectural Review Commission at 10:30, and then you have a public hearing on a vacation of easement at 10:30. And then you have staff reports. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Afternoon, Mr. Shelby.
What is council's pleasure?
Set it for 1:30 on November 4th, which is our next regular meeting.
Well,
And
staff
take that-
reports are at 1:30,
Okay.
so it would have to be after staff reports, roughly around about after 2.
All right.
You're gonna
so
do it.
wanna
'Cause
do
this is gonna be long, I can tell you right.
2:30?
Well, actually, council, quite frankly, at this point in time, Mr. Dingfelder being absent, I would ask him to review the record, review the hearing, and be prepared to vote. And if
Okay.
it has to be reopened for him to ask questions, he may do so, but
Okay.
it should not be a lengthy process. If
Okay.
council wishes to take it up in the morning, it
Aye.
might not be lengthy. It's certainly council's pleasure.
Mr.
But-
Chair, I have to make the statement, I have to go to Florida League of Cities meeting next week, and I may have to cut out. So my recommendation may be first thing on the agenda in the morning, so that way this case can be heard and we will have a full 7 council members here.
I'm not opposed to that. I think Mr. Citro is very forward in saying that. I appreciate Mr. Citro's comments.
Okay, all right, I mean, council's pleasure, I always look at.
With your approval, Mr. Chair.
I'm okay with this.
And
What-
Mr.
what
Chair,
we wanna
may I-
do.
if I may? Thank you, sir. I remember during the alcohol hearings, the COVID alcohol hearings, when I was out of town and I had to break a tie, it took 10 minutes, even though the initial hearing took forever. But I also want to say something, if I may, in this, that a lot of the folks who spoke there, I know them. They're very good people. This wasn't an easy vote for me at all. I think that people vote how they vote for whatever reasons. My view was and remains that pursuant to the law as I understand it, and what's been put forward and competent substantial evidence that's been put forward or the lack thereof that we can rely upon was my vote. But I just say that because I have a lot of regard for this family, and it's just, I feel I owe that. But thank you, sir.
So move.
You're recognized.
To complicate things, council, which is something I make a habit, I have, just for you to look at the calendar, at 9 a.m. you have a commendation for Police Officer of the Month, commendation for Firefighter of the Quarter, commendation to Bob Clark from Tampa Steel, a commendation to Randy Goers, and a presentation of 5 minutes to Tampa Bay Thrives on Mental Health. If council member needs to be out early, the
Police
question
officers
is...
moved to December.
Yeah, police
Right.
officer.
Police officers moved to December.
Correct.
Okay, so the police officer...
However, I would like to add to that, we have 3 applications for reappointments. Shouldn't take long, but I just want to add that.
Let's do it 10:30 time certain,
Time certain.
you know?
Can you be here at 10:30, Mr. Citro?
I will be here at 10:30.
Thank you, sir.
All right,
So move to reopen and continue for November 4th at 10:30 a.m.
Time certain.
Mr. Chair?
So council will stop what it's doing, I guess, at whatever
Yeah.
point to take up the issue.
Yeah, we've already heard everything. You've mentioned that Councilman Dingfelder can review the record. Everything, I believe, has been asked, said, and expressed. And, he should have more than enough information to make a decision.
I'll communicate with him tomorrow morning on this,
That's the
so
motion.
he'll be
all
prepared.
right, motion on the floor, we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Miranda, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr.
may I
Grant.
make a comment?
I'll give you the pleasure to make a comment.
Okay, I know it's closed here, but this is kind of a unique situation. Being the nature of a settlement proposal, I just pose this question to council. Is there any information or that we could provide to council to assist them in, are there any lingering questions, or do we not present something to them that you think might be of benefit for the next hearing?
I don't think we can answer that, Mr. Bentley,
Okay.
because we're closed now, so I don't think we can answer that, but
Okay, thank you. Mhm.
But thank you,
Council,
Mr. Shelby?
because the hearing is open, the questions are not limited just to Councilmember Dingfelder. If something in the course of perhaps his questions or something that comes up in the course of the hearing, you wish to have that opportunity during the hearing before it closes. And of course, if there's an issue that Mr. Bentley needs to have the last word, if there needs to be, that can be taken up. Also, counsel, I just want to caution you, please do not discuss this publicly or have any ex parte communications between now and next week on the subject.
All right. It's about that time, and we're gonna see if we can get
Okay,
to it
thanks.
fast. Mr. Vieira?
Nothing, sir. Woo-hoo.
You gotta put that in the record book there, huh?
Nothing.
Mr. Maniscalco, Mr. Carlson,
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Citro,
I'll keep it going, nothing.
Mr.
I have a commendation from Mr. Vieira for the first time.
And let's tell the Pope and get a miracle certified out of it.
I have a couple, Mr. Chairman, if I may. It was sent by Jennifer Malone. Motion number one, a request by the Planning Commission setting adoption hearing for TA/P CPA 21-11, TA/CPA 2121, TA/CPA 2119, and TA/CPA 21-22 on January 27, 2022 at 5:01 p.m. and direct the legal department to provide the city clerk with the form of notice and advertising for the public hearing.
Second.
Mr. Miranda moved, Mr. Citro second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted.
Motion number two, a request by the Planning Commission setting a transmittal hearing for TA/CPA 21-23, TA/CPA 2124, and TA/CPA 2127 on February 24th, year 2022 at 5:01 p.m. and direct the legal department to provide the city clerk with the forms of notice for advertising and public hearing.
Second.
Second by Mr. Citro, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion granted.
Thank you. Item number three, motion number three, a request by the Planning Commission in coordination with the City Planning Department to appear and present before City Council a comprehensive plan update workshop on February 24th, year 2022 at 9 a.m.
Second.
Second by Mr. Citro, all in favor?
Right.
Any opposed? Motion granted.
And one more, if I may, our Community WaterWise Award winner for 2021 is Alan Feldman of Hampton Terrace. I would like to schedule a presentation of the award with City Council on December 2nd, meeting Mr. Feldman and confirm his availability for December 2nd.
Second by Mr. Maniscalco, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted.
No, you gotta give it to them.
Sir, Councilman, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
do you have any new business?
Yes, sir, just one right quick. We got the gavel. You know, we had scheduled Mr. Reddick, my predecessor, to come for the Sickle Cell Association Award, but there was some confusion with his membership at the time of the schedule, and we tried. So now we're gonna just go ahead and see if we can have that accommodation presented to him on our first accommodation session on January 18, 2022.
Second.
We have a motion from Chairman Goode with a second from Councilmember Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Anything else, sir?
That's it.
Move to receive and file.
Second.
Second, Mr. Scalco, Mr. Citro, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen.
You know, we're studying all those things, scale and massing and all of those things. And so we created a three-dimensional zoning map just to determine, to understand the height, the goals of zoning as far as height goes. So there's lots of different zones here, and they're divided by these lines. But the point of this drawing is to show the height limits. So everything that here is in yellow has a height limit of 45 feet. The darker tan color has a height limit of 60 feet. And the, looks kind of white on this projection. Those areas that are just here and here illustrate zones that have a 35